Right, just FYI, the podcast is called the Over the Hill Podcast because my surname is Hill. So we're going
Not
for
because we're old and you're getting all the oldies on.
nah. It's just partly because I'm a little bit over the hill in terms of music, but yeah. So yeah, this will probably be episode 2 of the Over the Hill
Yeah.
podcast, and right about now I'm sitting down with DJ BQ. One part of BQ and Unique, UK garage producer, DJ, former Pirate Radio DJ, presenter extraordinaire, was a massive
You're too
part
kind.
of,
You're too kind.
you know me, mate, a massive part of what at the time was quite probably the biggest station in London, True FM.
Yeah.
100.2, a station that was actually, despite me being more of a house DJ, was actually very influential to me, which is why you're one of the people that I've wanted to sit down and have a conversation with. And it's weird that
Yeah.
we've been mates on the socials and that for
Yeah.
Christ knows
For
2012, something like that.
so long. Yeah.
And we've never actually hung out or been able to shoot the shit. And given that we're living in this mad time, it's a good opportunity to do so before we
To
unlock and go
catch
back to
up.
normal.
I
So
know, mate. I know.
how is it been, how has this whole time been for you? Like, because I know,
Well,
you're a cabbie and stuff as well. So obviously, like,
yeah.
work wise, things must have been quiet. But obviously, with kids at home, how's it been?
Well, it's been. I think we're all in the well. We're obviously all in the same boat. But for me, my situation, I'm a little bit more fortunate than most in regards that we don't struggle financially because of it. Not to say that we haven't cut back on things. I think I was speaking to someone the other day and who is quite well off, has earned bundles of money over the years, and even they're cutting back things. They're cutting things back like Sky, their mobile, and these are guys that earn, grands a week. You're talking like 5, 6, 7,
Yeah,
8, 9, up to 10 grand a week, and even they're doing. So everyone's conscious, no matter how much money you've got. We're always conscious about, um, you know, not having any in the future.
mm.
For me, it's homeschooling. I actually quite enjoy it. I really do. And what I've learned over this time is that all the kids are different, all the parents are different, and I do genuinely feel quite sorry for some other parents. I can really feel for them, mate. If their kids are giving them a hard time, it's quite a difficult thing to overcome. It
Yeah,
really is, mate.
it's an area that I know for a fact I've felt quite blessed in because I'm still been working from home, even though my workload's greatly reduced and I am really bored. And there have been times when it's really gotten to me,
Yeah,
the lack of stuff to do. My missus, obviously, she works for the health service, so she's always been busy. I've always had stuff to do, and relatives that I've been looking after during this time. But I don't think I could have coped with also trying to manage with kids. I think our time's been taken up well enough, but I think having kids and trying to deal with all this, I think, yeah, I really do sympathize with some parents because, just being in the same four walls as anyone for a period of time,
yeah,
even if it's just your other half or your flatmate or whatever, it's a bit much. And I suppose with the homeschooling and stuff, it is a bit of a distraction and it can be made fun, and it can keep a routine, which is a benefit in a way. Um,
yeah.
but yeah, kudos to you parents, mate, who've been
Well, I
kicking
think
on.
you hit the nail on the head there with the routine, and it took me a while to get onto that routine, like fully on board with it, because of just how it was new to everyone.
Yep.
So, for instance, you don't have that short walk to school anymore. Just little things like that, and so I started taking the kids out in the morning and going, all right, let's go for a walk. 40 minutes, half hour, whatever. Literally the school is like 30 seconds down the road. But just taking them out and having that walk and then coming back and going, and now let's start.
Yeah.
And the school has kind of changed as well. So it wasn't always just these Zoom lessons. It was, here's the work, complete it. but they're still getting used to it. I can't, it's hard to sit there and as easy it is to sort of poke holes at the teachers and say like, oh, should have done this, should have done that. Like I said at the start, we are all in the same boat.
Yep.
And they are as well, and they're human.
It's one thing I found quite remarkable actually is my sister's got 2 kids, and I've got loads of friends that have got kids, and just paying attention to different people on my social media and stuff like that is I've noticed I say I've noticed, I'm amazed and more fascinated every day by the resilience and the adaptability of children. Like, it's quite mad. Like, when I look at my sister's kids, like I went to, it was my niece's birthday last week, and I went round and, on the doorstep and gave them a present and whatnot. And, they were just so happy and chilled, and they were just like, yeah, I was talking to her, and she's only 9. And I was like, when you're going back to see your friends, are you happy about it? So yeah, I can't wait to go back, but then I'm not going to be at home with mum. And, like they just, it's fascinating to me how well they adapt and change.
Yeah. I would like to, I'd like to, see in about a couple of months' time and see the effect it's had. I think we'll only know then the effects that this whole thing has had on the kids.
Yeah.
Just what I've noticed speaking to my children's friends' parents, and some of them like point blank refuse to do work. And it's hard to not be sympathetic. People would say, just, like, get on with it, and stuff. It's not that simple. It's not that simple. The kids are going through this. Like, well, think about when we was kids. If this was happening with us, a generation where we would be itching to go out, we didn't have like the social media games. Like, like you go PlayStation, you go and talk with all your friends from. It's like you've not even missed them. But
we had 5 channels, bro.
4. We had 4. It was crazy. So
yeah, and one of them finished at midnight. So
yeah, exactly. Mate. Yeah. It's but like you said, the kids are great. People always say kids are like sponges. So hopefully that in a few months' time, when a bit of normality sets in, because even the rest of this academic year, I don't think it's going to be the same. So if you got kids that are, say, going into secondary school, this sort of after Easter half term, things are fun, because you're leaving school, you're going to new school. So things are quite fun, and it's going to be really tough for them, because the teachers aren't going to be able to do that. They're not going to be able to do that because they're conscious that how much work they've missed out on.
Yeah, I think it's for a lot of kids it is going to be a test in time. I'm just so glad that it looks like finally, and I'm quite a cautious person with this stuff, but it looks like finally we are turning a corner. Everything can get back to normal. I'm even toying with the idea of purchasing my first festival tickets that I've seen advertised for an event, not till September though. So Southport weekend, the festival though, man, it's like Mecca to me. Do you know what I mean? I can't not go.
You're a brave man.
Well, I've actually had the jab. I had my jab this week.
Oh, so, no way. Is that that'd be your first one, yeah?
That's the first one, yeah. So I'll go back again in 12 weeks. But yeah, I had it. I'm not talking Russian. My Wi-Fi indoors is still shit. So, none of the myths
apply. Does Bill Gates know what you're doing? Is Bill Gates controlling this whole podcast now?
If he does, he's had a boring day, mate. I tell you, because I ain't done fuck all. But no, yeah, I had my jab. I think if you listen to the Paul S podcast that I did, big up Paul. I did say on there, like, I'm volunteering at the vaccine centre next door to my work. So I'm still waiting on the start date for that. But yeah, I've had my jab and I'm feeling pretty comfortable with it.
So where do you find time for that? I mean, I don't want to flip this around like I'm always asking you questions.
No.
Where do you find time for this? Like, because you were quite heavily involved in volunteering when Grenfell happened, and that was something that touched me. Like, it really did. Really did. Like, I was at the time trying to think of ways where I could help out, and I just in my head, I couldn't think of a way where I could help out. Like I had a black cab that I could just like use and come down and ferry stuff around, but I just didn't. And you know, and then people were being turned away because there were so many people trying to help.
That's literally what I was about to say. Like, so with Grenfell, it was my boy Eamon James, Mr.
Yeah,
E.
yeah.
He was one of the managers at a youth centre, which was right opposite where Grenfell Tower was, and obviously he's kind of a community figure around there doing that kind of work. So when it happened, I mean, like, you know, by 3:30 a.m. or whatever, he was out of bed, he was there. Do you know what I mean? And I don't think the guy left for like 4 days, and it was only because I knew he was there. I was like, well, I'm not going to let my boy deal with it on his own. And I'm one of them people that, you know, I will do my utmost to do something. And basically, I'm just lucky to be the job that I work in. I'm lucky that I'm flexible, and I'm lucky that I'm trusted enough to be able to take time off and still catch up on my work. So with Grenfell, I literally just took annual leave, bruv. I just took my own annual leave and just went down there and pitched in as best I could. And I'll tell you what, exhausting work, man. Like, it was crazy down there. Like,
emotionally exhausting as well.
Yeah, that didn't hit me. That didn't hit me until I think the fire happened on like a Wednesday or whatever, and we were there Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. I think I got home Saturday night, and that was the first day we'd actually managed to get like care packages to families and stuff. And I think I was sitting in the bath, and I tweeted like, Eamon tweeted something, and I think I retweeted it or tweeted it, and then people started replying to me saying, "Oh, how can we help?" And or they were saying, "Well done for you doing the help." And that's when I was sitting in the bath, and I just started crying. I was like, "Shit."
Yeah, man.
Because I'd been listening to stories of people, like one of the guys we were working with, you know, they tried to run into the building because their aunt was there, and luckily enough she got out. And you know, Eamon was telling me the story of this one guy that, you know, he came down from like the 15th floor, and he didn't see his wife after the 13th floor. You know, they left together, and I don't think she made it out. And
there's a story like that for me that really struck me with that one. It was, I think it was 3 guys were explaining it, and it was their uncle or something was quite high up on maybe one of the top floors, and they called him, and he said, "Yeah, I'm coming down," and then he didn't come down, and then they called him again, and he said, "I can't move, the floor is too hot." And that, mate, it sort of half broke my heart.
And literally being there and just seeing, you know, the sadness in people and stuff like that, and it's an experience I will never ever forget. It's a weird thing to say, but I think it's something that everyone should do in their life is to participate in volunteer work, not necessarily in the face of a fucking tragedy though. Which is why I'm really quite eager to go and participate in doing the vaccine and stuff, because I've been sat at home getting full wages and not doing my full job. You know, my partner's at the coalface, like dealing with this shit day in, day out. And, you know, by the time I get around to doing it, it will start being people my own age that are getting vaccinated, you know? So I'm kind of just eager to be a part of it and feel like I'm making a difference. And, you know, every one person, because I'm actually training to do the vaccination as well, not just be someone who works at the center.
And that takes that takes a longer time than we would have hoped, right?
Yeah, it's a few extra days. So they're actually, initially I was supposed to go up to Middlesex Uni to do it, but I think they're doing it at Business Design Centre, isn't it? And so it would be a little bit less of a journey. So fingers crossed I can start that within the next week or so. It's basically just doing DBS checks and stuff now, so they know who everyone is and whatnot. But because I'm doing it through my work, they've got everyone's details anyway. So they're just basically signing over all the data to the company that work next door to us where the vaccines are being done. So yeah, I'm eager to do it. And yeah, I just said to my governor, I was like, look, even when we go back to work, I won't be working 5 days a week. I'll be doing like 2 or 3 days at home, 2 or 3 days at work. So can I just crack on and do it? And me and one of the other guys that runs the department, like me and him are both just like been given permission to go. So yeah, I'm gassed.
That's really great, mate. That's really great. And I think, like you said, I think everyone should do a bit of volunteering. Just it opens your eyes to a lot more that you're not really, you don't really see.
No,
I don't know whether that, like, I don't know where you're from originally in regards to that, like your upbringing, but I think for me, growing up in quite a bad council estate in like the 80s, 90s.
Whereabouts were you?
Finsbury Park.
Okay.
So seeing seeing a lot of that, and you don't really notice it when you're a kid. You only notice it as you get older and you start to look back at your life and you think, wow, that was quite bad, you know, and people were really struggling, you know, stuff like that. And just to help those, I always think of those people first when anything like that comes up, like volunteering, charity work. You know, for me, it's more kids. Like,
well, someone I've learned a lot from is Eamon for doing the youth work. You know, some of the kids that he helps, and you know, he helps.
Which one's he at? Is it a Harrow Club?
It was the Harrow Club. He's running a different place now, over like towards Kensington. Right. So he took a job there with, you know, even more responsibility and more work to do, because the guy's he's just driven like that. So, but yeah, being around him and being around some of the kids, and you know, West London, like around that area, around Latimer and stuff, and White City and whatnot, there's so much violence. You know, so many stabbings. You know, shootings even, and it's you know, watching the way he deals with young people, and he's from similar backgrounds to us, you know. Like me personally, I was born in Fulton Heath, big up Stormzy, and I lived in Croydon for, you know, my first few years, and then I grew up on a council estate like in Southfields in Wandsworth, so we're from similar backgrounds. Eamon's also he's from Pimlico, but if anyone who knows about Pimlico around here, it's like it is all estates and stuff. It's not, do you know what I mean?
Churchill Gardens or whatever it is.
That's literally where he's from. He grew up on Churchill. So you know, he can relate to these kids and you know, teach them the things to do better than what he did when he was young, and seeing things like that, it gives me more inspiration to try and make a little bit more of a difference. And because, you know, it's a mad world that we're not just what's happened recently, but like it's a mad world that we are living in. And it's one of them things where I hate the fact that a lot of people have to exist in a world where we have charity. Like, I don't like that. It's something I hate, but at the same time, it doesn't necessarily mean that I would not contribute to something like that, you know. So
of course, man.
So yeah, for me, I think the volunteering is key. I think the volunteering is key. And I worked on, you know, when I was we'll get into the subject of the radio and stuff, because when I first started working after I left school, I was working on a lot of estates around Islington, which is where I first started listening to True, because we had like radios in the office and whatnot, and little radio Walkmans when he was out, and I was doing a lot of the cleanup and the decorating of the halls, like around the Pack and Bemerton and all of them different estates around there, down by St Luke's and everywhere else. And you know, just seeing some of the stuff that was going on there when I was working alongside the council doing various odd jobs and handyman work there, it was like, I was like, because I was from South and I'd moved to Islington, and I was like, okay, so it is pretty much the same everywhere you go. Like,
it's the same.
It's in a city life, mate. It's really different. And it's crazy to me nowadays because, you know, where my partner lives, she lives bang opposite one of the old blocks that we used to use for flight back in the day. And I look at it now and it's like Battersea's almost gentrified. And I'm like, it's mad. Like, the buildings are still here, but this ain't what it was. Like, I remember rolling through this estate when I was 13, and every window you could just hear like council estate anthems like Sexy Cinderella coming out of them, and everyone was smoking weed, and but it's all like, it's so much different now. But I think it's also, I think when it comes to like the locals, everyone's a little bit more underground, and there's like a sinister undertone to a lot of places. So when you see like kids getting stabbed and stuff like that, happens in Battersea all the time. All the residents are mad shocked, but it's like, no, like these people they were just on the road before. Now it's like a little bit more quiet, and things tend to happen more on social media and on the phones and stuff. And then you see a kid get stabbed and you're like, where did that come from? It's like, you pushed it underground, and you know,
it's always
papered
been
the
there.
cracks.
It has always been there. Yeah, and it's, do you know what? Speaking, you know, from a cab driver's perspective, you have like this amazing cross section of people that get into a cab, and you get all of these different views from all over the world, different cultures, you know, different age groups. Just everything is amazing. Actually, you can, like, being a cab driver, you can learn so much if you're willing to. If you're willing to listen to people, you ain't got to agree with them. But just listening to people, you can learn so much. And I remember speaking to a lady. She was asking me about, it was when there was a lot of knife crime in the news, and we might have gone through a real spate of stabbings, you know, like 7 deaths in like 5 days or something like that. And she was saying to me, why do they do it? Like, why are they so frivolous with lives? They just, you know, they don't care. And it's because where we grew up, you grow up really quick. You grow up so quick, and you witness a lot. And it's never, like, for me anyway, it was never in the home. It was always outside, outside my front door rather than inside my house. But you're privy to some serious behavior which you shouldn't see at the age of 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, even all the way up to, you shouldn't be seeing that when you're 15 years old, and these kids literally have nothing. They have nothing at all. And do you know what? There's a great line from a Skinny Man track who was from my estate. And he says, all they've got left is their pride and it hurts. And it's such a true line for me. It resonates so much because these kids feel like they've got nothing. They feel like they have nothing. And all they've got left is their pride. So if you're giving it to someone, like you'd walk down the street as a kid and you would just glance at someone and they'd say, what are you looking at? You're like, oh, mate, like, what are you talking about? Just looking at you. But you're in that same mindset. So you're like, who are you looking at? You know what I mean?
I even had one of them moments. I had one of them moments yesterday.
That's what I mean.
I've never grown out of it. I've still never grown out of it. It's in music terms as well. There's another line, and it's one of my favorite artists of all time, Kano. I was listening to, I banged on loads about 3 of his albums and Gets his album the other day, and there's a Roadman's Hymn on one of his albums, and one of his lines on there is, if you tell a kid he won't be shit, he won't be shit.
It won't be shit. And
it's like that's the problem. Like, and the whole track, A Roadman's Hymn, is like, gangsters were like superheroes to us because they were. Like when I was growing up in Wandsworth, like, I'd be on what was known as Shitlock Drive. It was Whitlock Drive. It's a lot of pirate radio history there as well, because it's on the side of a big hill, and it's actually where a certain legal station broadcasts from now. But anyway, and it was like crack central, and the boys that were shot in the crack and everything else, like, they were, like, in reality, they're pricks. But to us, like, when you're 12, 13 years old, you've got nothing. Do you know what I mean? Like, you can't, your mum's like reaching in her pocket and only feeling her leg. Do you know what I mean? You can't ask for nothing. You can't, like, and then you go out and these boys that are 5 or 6 years older than you have already got a Golf. Do you know what I mean? And they're rolling around the estate, and they've got 2 or 3 girls with them, and you're like, rah, like, who's this guy? You don't realize that in a couple of years' time, that guy's going to be nothing. Do you know what I mean? He's either going to be in pen, he's going to be dead, or he's going to have a crap job somewhere like everyone else he might have got out of it, but he ain't got nothing behind him. But at the time, you look at them people and it's like, rah, I want that. And it's so easy for kids to get dragged into it. And then with
you never have that clarity now. Like as a kid, you don't have that clarity of or that mindset where you can step back from it and go, like you said, he's a prick. Like, he's actually just a prick. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's the same as, like, when you're 18, 19 and you go out for a beer and you're in a pub and there's, like, you're a Spurs fan, there's Arsenal fans over there, and someone says something, and either it kicks off or it just gets a bit argumentative, and it's like, when you're a teenager or when you're in your early 20s even, it's like, I was bang on that mindset. I was like, all right, sweet, let's crack on with this. Like you say jump, and like the bottles are swinging, but like when you get to like your 30s and that, it's just like, like, my first thought now, if I hear some sort of drama or commotion around me, is, for fuck's sake, can you shut up? Like, I just want a bit of peace and quiet. I can't deal with it. And a lot of it is growing up, and kids are growing up in a different generation now. And there is, I'm not one of them people that will sit and blame music at all, but you do have a lot of stuff to do with the beef around drill music and stuff like that, that's exacerbating an existing problem. It's not causing a problem, it's a symptom of a problem that's then making it worse in turn. And it's so different with the YouTube and internet humiliation and stuff, and it's crazy. It's been crazy to watch the last few years of inner city life and how different it is, but how similar it is. It's weird.
I would like to know how we would have reacted to something like this, with our mindset of growing up. Obviously, we would have been probably similar to these kids, but I think the social media and, like you said, the YouTube, it does just amplify beef.
Yeah.
Because if someone sends a video, you know, cussing you or something, you're seeing that video and thinking, well, right, how many other people have seen that?
Do you know what's crazy is even when I was about, I was probably about 17, 18. So we're talking 04, like it's before YouTube. My sister got internet bullied. Some kid that she was in like year 8, year 9, and she had a year 9 boyfriend, you know, like them ones that you go out for a week or whatever. Obviously, like, she gave him the old elbow or whatever, and he's like made some silly website and put her picture on it and started cussing her. They're like, people had their own like face pick or like geo webs or whatever the hell it was. Everyone had silly websites, and he did that. And I saw what it did to her then. Like, don't get me wrong, I punched the kid up, but it's it's one of them things where it's like that existed then, and it's just got worse and worse and worse. And I saw what that did to her mind state back then as a young'un, and you know, I can only imagine what some of these kids go through with, you know, having their pictures put out and stuff. Yeah, it's crazy.
It's heartbreaking. You got to think, if there's a picture out there of you, it's out there. And,
yeah. It's even weird with like the memes and stuff. I feel bad sometimes, like if you share a meme, because I think there's a person that's in that meme. Like, where did they come from? You know?
Well, you know, the four fellas, the shanty fellas.
Yeah.
Like, luckily for us, that were, well, I don't know if you were tweeting it, but like, you know, I took laughs at that, and you know, so I can't say I'm, you know, absolved myself of any sort of blame for it, but it was luckily they took it well, you know, but other people wouldn't.
No, and you
know,
can't
blame you know them. What? There's a picture, and it really gets to me when people laugh about it. It's a slightly overweight Asian lady sitting on a bus, and she's got a pair of football boots on. Now, like, in isolation, like, you would just like be like, oh, you know, you want to crack up. Like, you're like, what the fuck are you wearing football boots for? But strip it back. You know why she's wearing football boots, because she can't afford fucking trainers. Like, we're still going to carry on laughing at her. You know them ones. And I don't know, like, some people use this whole like, oh, everyone gets offended nowadays and whatever. But come on, man.
No,
like,
there are some things to be offended about. There are some things you just don't like. There's things that I know for a fact. I know 110% for a fact. Like, I don't consider myself a woke as fuck person, but I do consider myself quite principled. Do you know what I mean? And I do. I understand the concepts behind privilege and things like that. And I'm quite open-minded to that. But I know for a fact 10 years ago there's shit I said and shared that I should never have done.
100%.
Like, and it's like, I get now why, if someone shares something and someone, like, don't get me wrong, there's some things that people find offensive that I'm just like, there's no correlation. Like, there's absolutely no correlation.
For real.
But, you know, there's it's not even a fine line between funny and offensive. There's some things that just should not be shared and said and stuff. In this world where we're all interconnected and everyone's on top of everyone, you know, we shouldn't be sharing some stuff. And myself, I've been making more of a conscious effort over the last couple of years to not, because, you know, I do worry about the path that it's leading us down. And, you know, I'm kind of tempted to throw my phone in the bin after time. I'm not going to lie.
Mate, look, I'm the same sometimes. Like, even with Twitter and stuff, like, could you imagine someone goes through your Twitter and goes all the way back, like 7, 8, 9 years, and the shit that you were saying, like, it doesn't even have to be offensive. It's just cringe. You might just cringe. You go, oh God, why did I say that?
Well, I'm still blocked by certain garage DJs for some of the shit I said 8, 9 years ago.
I think I know who you're talking about as well.
Yeah, I think I sent the screenshot to you, didn't I? I was like, what did he say? Why is everyone bigging up this tweet? I can't see it. There's a good 4 or 5 of them. Because, yeah, as I say, but there's a prime example. A decade ago, I was reckless. I'd run my mouth if I thought you said something or did something. Like, I thought I was like, I didn't think I was like the man, but, you know, like, there's you know, one garage DJ that I tweeted him a mix, and I said to him, oh, I doubt he'll even play it. And like, just literally, it was just all I said. And then afterwards, like, he just got well shirty about the fact that I'd said it. He's like, you can't say things like that to me. And he ended up ringing me up, and we went back and forth, and then, you know, and then, like, he started threatening me, and then someone else got involved, and it all got squashed. But it was like over a social media comment. And, you know, learned the hard way to just sort of be like, do you know what? Sometimes it's best just to never speak to people.
Mate, I don't know if you do it, but I do it. I even do it now on Twitter, where I get like angry about something. I start typing away, like tweeting someone, and then sometimes I even send it, and then I go, "What am I doing?"
Yeah.
And then I just delete the tweet, delete it.
Yeah.
Delete it. No one needs to see that. Like, what am I doing? Like,
Yeah.
what's the point of me engaging in this? It's pointless.
In the last couple of years, I've had 2 tweets go viral.
Yeah.
And I was getting death threats on one of them for, about 5 or 6 days. I tweeted, it's still my pinned tweet now, and it was just, there was a rumor going around, and hopefully Spotify won't pull me off for this, but there was a rumor going around that William had apparently cheated on Kate, and it was being blacked out. But this is it. It was being blacked out by the British media, and there was loads of reports of it in American media, Canadian media, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
But at exactly the same time, there was some huge thing about Meghan, because there's always some huge thing about
Obviously.
Meghan. So me being me, I didn't think this would happen. I just turned around and I was like, it's weird how there's all these rumors about William and Kate, but everyone's pissed off about Meghan because she's a bit brown. Like, that's basically, I think that's almost word for word what I tweeted. Bruv, when I tell you the death threats, the misspelled death threats that I was getting, like, I went to, it was the day Endgame came out of the cinema, and I went to the cinema at midnight. And I didn't have my phone on for like 3 hours because I was just in there in the zone watching this film. And I come out and I went to the cinema at Fulham. Fulham was the only one that was open. And I literally, it's not that far from me, and I enjoy walking. So I walked back from Fulham at 3 a.m, just looking at my phone, just cracking up. Like,
mate, I didn't even know cinemas were open at midnight. What the fuck?
When it's a big thing like a Star Wars or an Avengers, like they're
sick.
They were on it. Yeah, mate, it was the most busy I'd ever seen that cinema. Like, I'd never seen it that packed. I've never actually seen it full up in general, even on like a Friday or Saturday night. Apart from, I went to see Infinity War there, obviously another Avengers film, but I went to see that a couple of days after it had come out. But then, I went to see Endgame, literally the night, first showing. And it was crazy, man. It was like, I went in my Captain America t-shirt and everything, bro. I wasn't fucking about on my own as well. I don't give a monkey's, bro. I'm like,
I've never been to cinema by myself, but I'm not against the idea. I
go on my own all the time, and it's funny. I've met my missus about 3 days prior to that. Like, we just met, went out on a first date and stuff, and she was like, "Oh, what are you doing tonight?" And I was like, "Well, I'm gonna have a little kip because
I can't tell you because you won't go out with me."
No, I told her straight up. I was like, "This is me. Deal with it. Fucking deal with it."
I'm going to the cinema in my Captain America t-shirt by myself.
Yeah, I sent her a selfie and everything, man. I don't fuck about like that. But that's me in a nutshell. And again, it's something that it got me into trouble in the past. It was like, I am me. Like, I will say it as I see it, and I'm just like. And the thing is with me is the older I get as well, the less I give a fuck about people's reactions to me being me.
Well, I was going to say, I think as you get older, that people prefer that anyway. They prefer you to be like that because well, firstly, it doesn't waste anyone's time.
Yeah,
what I mean, it doesn't waste no one's time. But yeah, go on. Sorry, so you're walking home from.
But I was just reading these tweets and I'm just like, what in the fuck is like it was, and some of the stuff that was coming at me and some of the pages, the ones, they've all got flags in their fucking names. They all got Trump Soldier 2019 or whatever. Like, it was just craziness. And then the other one was the day after we left the EU last year. I was sitting with my dad. And he's like a big Brexiter and it's bone of contention with me and him. But like I think that day England had been stuffed by France in the Six Nations. Like, it was brutal. And then there'd been a terror attack in Streatham. And me being a dickhead, I just tweeted, fuck me, one day out of the EU and we've got terrorists in Streatham and we've been raped by the French. How's Brexit going? Like, it's tongue-in-cheek stupidity. Like, even my dad was sitting there and had a little chuckle about it, and he's a Brexiter. Just like, bruv, some dickhead, like the UK editor of Breitbart, found the tweet, retweeted it and said, look at this fucking prick. And then a geezer called Raheem Kassam, who was Nigel Farage's advisor, who was in loads of pictures with Trump and everything else, screenshotted the tweet and put it up on his Facebook with like 200,000 followers.
You know why they do that, though? You know why they do that. And people from both sides do that. Even James O'Brien, for instance, who I know you listen to and I listen to, he does it as well. And I actually despise it when people do that because they will just retweet a tweet. Like he'll just retweet or he'll like a tweet that someone's cussing him,
Yeah.
but he's doing it for the sole reason. So we all go, hang on, let's jump to his defense.
Yeah.
Whereas in your case, this guy's doing it to say, let's attack this guy.
Yeah, it's a dog pile, and I was sitting there, and I think it was a bit of an eye opener for my dad, because he'd always seen people that sit on my side of politics, like on the left kind of side, like he'd always kind of seen us as the loud, nasty people. Whereas when he saw the abuse that I was getting, he sat there and went, "Fuck me!" Like, really? Like, people were that upset about that? Like, I said to him, I said, if you can't take someone laughing at your beliefs, you don't believe in them strongly enough. Like, it's as simple as that. It's like, if you're religious and you can't take someone saying, well, you know, like, and I'm not saying you need to insult an entire religion, but if someone can't make fun out of the Pope, like, you shouldn't be a Catholic. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, you can't like defend something by getting upset about someone saying something negative about it. It doesn't work like that. So I think, but those sort of things there, like, it's one of my mates there ran to me the other week and said something. I tweeted something, I can't remember what it was, and it started to get a little bit of traction, so I deleted it. But my mate said to me, he's like, how do you like not get affected by what them people say, like when they're saying all that stuff in their replies? And I'm like, bruv, like, I literally couldn't give less of a fuck. You're not paying my bills. You're not putting food on my table. Like, your opinion of me is none of my business. Like, tweet it to your heart's content. The notifications are turned off, bruv. I don't care.
I'm the same. I'm the same with notifications. They're all off me.
But I think, you know, growing up, definitely, you know, one of the reasons I'm blocked by certain people is because I never used to really be like that. I used to be quite combative and have a lot of opinions on, especially with the music game and things like that. So, It's one of the reasons.
I think as you get older, you start to realize that even if you still hold those opinions, not everyone needs to know.
No,
you know, unless they ask, you know.
And if they downloaded this podcast, then they fucking asked. So you're getting opinions, whether you like it or not.
That's right.
Subscribe, you bastards. So let's do this. But I'm like kind of a weird paradox, because I don't care if people don't like me. And I don't care if people don't agree with my opinion, but I'm starting a podcast to talk about my experiences and opinions. But also, you know, to have conversations with people like yourself who, just before I hit record, I think, or it might have even been at the start, we were saying, like, we've never actually had a chance to sit down and have a conversation. Even though we've got very similar views on stuff and a lot of similar experiences, albeit similar experiences from the other side of the river from each other, you know, like,
like I'm on the correct side of the river.
Technically, I'm on the same side as you. Pimlico is on the north side of the river, even though we've got a South London postcode. I do feel a little bit more comfortable. As I say, the missus lives in Battersea, and when I go over the bridge, like, I do feel a little bit more comfortable in the London borough of Wandsworth. I just do. It's like, it doesn't, you know, it's not something that feels foreign to me. But as I say, I lived in Islington myself. Very briefly, I lived in Hackney, and I lived up at the top of York Way as well. So I've lived like all over London. And as I say,
like you said, it's all the same.
It really is. It really is. There's no difference to it at all. You just have like certain pockets of different cultures that offer you different food. That's like,
it's true.
There's no difference.
You go to one road is Turkish. You go to the other, you know, like
like literally. I know if I'm in Brixton, I'm getting good Caribbean food. I know if I'm in Tottenham, I'm getting good Turkish food. It's just that's how I judge every different place. Is like, like you could blindfold me, put me on a street in London, and within 10 minutes of looking at the local takeaways, I'll know roughly what area I'm in. Right. It's just, that's how it is. So, you know, hence the fact that I'm currently weighing about 20 stone. Oh, mate, that's the other thing I'm looking forward to, is gyms opening again. Fuck me.
I mean, you could. I go running 3 times a week, and I don't know what I'd do without it, mate. Like,
I'm just too heavy. Like, I get like really bad knees and ankles if I run.
Look, I'll be honest. I'm not overweight or anything, but even my knees, mate. Like, my knees. Like, before a run, I'm not kidding. I'm like rubbing Tiger Balm on my knees. Honest to God, on the inside of my knees. Like, I text my running partner. We go mega early, like 6 a.m. in the morning.
I remember I saw you tweet the other day that you'd been out at 6:30 or whatever. I was just like, one part of me was like, go on, boy, and then the other part of me was like, you fucking nutter.
I know, but the thing is, like, I'm putting this on to try and warm my knees up, mate. because like, I don't know whether it's just like excessive football over the years has just done it. You know what I mean? I'm like, my knees are just going to pack up one day.
Do you know what's done it? Climbing up tower blocks, mate.
Do you know what? I'll be honest. I have only ever been, all of my time in Pirate Radio, I've only ever been on one aerial roof.
Whereabouts?
I've been on loads of mid. That was Bow, Roman Road.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the only one I've ever been on. And I tell you why as well, because I remember Genius from Rinse FM telling me the story that he went on a roof once and he stood too close to the aerial. And see, I'm not great with all the technical stuff when it comes to the Pirate Radio. And he said that he stood near this aerial where, I don't know, I think the guy was saying there would be like a loop like that you can't see, some sort of radio wave loop. And he said he got an instant migraine. So I was like, when he told me that story, I thought, all right, I need to keep off of these roofs. Just, I don't care about the police. I'm worried about getting a migraine on the roof. But I've only ever been on one. I've been on one aerial.
I did a couple, and I can't say where they were because they still get used. But I've been on a few. My thing was like I didn't even really get involved in the setting up. I kind of just went up there for the banter and the views. Like I love the views. Like for me, like stick me in a plane and just fly me around London all day looking down.
Well, you know what it is about being on the tower block? It's the unrestricted view. Yeah. Of the place where you live. Yeah. Like
that full 360.
And it's actually amazing. Like scary as hell when you first go up there.
Yeah, it is cool as well when you have got the aerial set up and it's on, and you sort of look out and you go, everything I see and more can hear what we're doing. Like that to me was always a moment. Obviously I brought you on to talk about True FM. And I know you were involved in it from, around the start pretty much.
Right at the start, like from the birth.
I was watching, I actually recently rewatched Drowned City, where Supplier was on there, obviously talking about, it's public knowledge he got arrested for allegedly running True FM, although it was still going after Supplier apparently was running True FM. So well done with that one, boys. And he mentioned that at the start of it, it was someone's idea to kind of get a lot of the best guys from different stations together. So I'm assuming, I know there was like ex-Shine DJs on there, ex-Extreme DJs on there, Sub-Jam DJs even. So was that kind of the concept, or was it just a bit more organic than that?
No, do you know what? It was, with everything that we did, it was meticulously planned. Yeah. And that was one of the things that we wanted. Yeah. So because I think everything we did, like, so we can touch on that on the raves after, like with the raves, everything, everything was, I think our team, we shared a passion for winning and serious, and it's not even a laughing matter, serious OCD. Like we, and that's when we first started True, it was one of the things to get all of the best DJs from every radio station, not just on our radio station, but wanting to be on there. Yeah, like actually like going, this is great, this is really great, and because I still think this now as well in regards to business and stuff, that if you pay people well, they're going to value the job more. So obviously we weren't paying people to be on True, but we wanted it to be the best, so you valued it and you didn't want to lose it, so you really respected it. You respected your show. Yeah. You respected the other DJs on there, and you respected the radio station as an entity, like as a whole.
In that environment, you then what happens then is you end up with people are punctual for their show. They don't forget their subs, quotes unquote. Like they know to hold themselves to a higher standard. it's funny, and I don't say it disrespectfully, but I think the worst DJ on there, and he'll probably agree, was Supplier, because he, as he said himself, he learned to basically DJ whilst he was doing his show, because he was never a DJ. But he
Yeah, he was
just
never a
he
DJ.
picked it up along the way, and he was so much fun when he hosted his shows. You didn't
Yeah,
necessarily care if he clanged a
yeah,
mix here or there, because it was like the show was popping, the music was good,
yeah,
like the calls were fun, like it, everyone, there was like an atmosphere around it. So yeah, I really did. It was something I noticed, even because I just kind of got into DJing myself around 16,
yeah.
17 properly. And that was at the time I was living in North, and when I discovered True. So yeah, that is something I noticed with you guys. Was your timetable was like insane, and you had, I think even overnight you had a bloody, who was it, the cleaner that played overnight at one point?
Yeah, yeah. And do you know what? He was like outside of the radio, he was sort of like a part of the team as well.
Yeah,
And I think that sort of separated True from a lot of other radio stations. Well, on this one thing was we had people on at night,
yeah,
and I remember having countless conversations with Supplier about True FM and saying that it was important that we had people on live all of the time,
yeah.
all of the time, like as much as we could. And those DJs that went through the night, we had a guy called Easy B. We had a guy called Slips. Slips was
Legend, a living legend.
yeah, man. Yeah, man. Yeah, like it's obviously like really sad what happened to him and stuff.
Yeah,
I remember when he passed away. I'm never one for like sentiment tweets or whatever, and I try and keep it. I'm quite a private person. It's mad, like like
so
DJs.
funnily enough,
Like
so
that.
was Slips.
Yeah, no, it's
I
true.
remember he came on Fat Beats one time, and he actually hated the idea of the webcam so much that he wore sunglasses and he had a hood done all the way up across his face, and he did his whole
Yeah,
set like that.
and I remember tweeting when he died. I think I might have even said like I don't usually do this sort of stuff, but just what a lovely person he was.
Yeah,
Like I'm
really was.
talking genuine and also as well like really really up for helping and had ideas. Always had ideas. Some of them were absolutely insane. Like they used to go, can't do that. You're not allowed to do that or whatever. But always trying to improve and always he connected with listeners in a way that other people couldn't. Is what I quite liked about him. I'm not saying that because he's not with us anymore. It's it's true. It really is. But having those people go through the night on the radio was amazing. Because it was less of a headache for us always to have someone in the studio. Because you haven't got to worry about keys, and stuff like that. The DJ's going to let the breakfast show boys in, and stuff like that.
Whereabouts were you guys based, like the majority of the time?
So mainly, yeah, East London, Roman Road area. Weirdly,
Okay.
like, you're never usually that close to your aerial site, but yeah, we had a few studios, all based around there, like running alongside the sort of A12, and Cable Street as well. Actually, Cable Street, we had two studios in there. One really good one as well. But obviously, we got hit by the authorities on more than a few occasions, so we did have to move. But we tried to stay in that area because it's just accessible and easy, and that's where we started. So
was it still at a time when you were running direct from the studio as opposed to with like an internet link like we all do now?
Right. So
because obviously that makes it more bait, like as with regards to studios getting hit.
Yeah. So I was actually, you know what? I remember being on Shine FM, and they had this great setup where if your signal got cut off, this alarm would go off. And I remember ringing up the guy that was running it. I was covering for Supplier on his show, and I rang him up. I was like, mate, everyone's telling me the things, the signal's gone off, and and there's this like beep going on, like this mad, like high pitched noise. And he's like, yeah, you need to get out of there now, mate. And I'm like, oh, all right, sweet. But that's it. That was the direct link. But obviously with pirate radio, you would also set up a midpoint, which would be, from your studio, then it would go to the midpoint, and then the midpoint would go to the aerial site. So look, the authorities, they ain't stupid. They know you do that. And they get on the midpoint roof because they think that's where your studio is, and then they get there and they go, okay, well, this is obviously a midpoint, and then they look at where the horn is facing, and they go, okay, so that way, and they'll get you eventually. They will get you eventually, and we just we got hit bad. Quite a few times.
The obvious reason, let's be serious here, is where the fuck you were on the dial, which had massive advantages and disadvantages from where I'm sitting. So it obviously, like, when I was working, as I say, when I was doing all the decorating work and whatnot in Islington, we'd have the old school painter's radio, and it was like the spin dial. Do you know what I mean? So you move it slightly.
Yeah, he's trying to get it right.
And like some of the boys would want to, let's put Kistry on, and then like they'd go to Kistry, and it, like, they'd flick by True, and it'd be like, no, fuck it, we're listening to this, like, because whoever's playing 10 till 12 was always decent or whatever, and then like there's an advantage in that sense, but then there's also like, I could never ever tell you that I ever listened to Kiss and heard True sprogging onto it. I can't say that ever happened.
But
they will use that as an excuse. They will use that.
This is the really interesting thing. So when we set up True FM, it was always I'll take you back to the very start, and the reason why we set it up is because we had all of the events going. Yeah. So we had the weekly events, we had Pure Temptation,
Nookie, and all them events.
Nookie, all of them. And I remember, it's funny, I was speaking to a supplier about this a few days ago, and he said to me, I remember a conversation that we had, because he said about the reason why we got the radio started, and I actually remembered the conversation when he said it, because he said to me, one of the reasons why we started the radio station was because of you, because you was always in my ear about it, and I was, and it was about how much money we were spending advertising with other radio stations. Yeah. And the huge following that supplier had on Shine. Like, I used to say to him, if we have our own, we will be able to, like, you'll take all those listeners that you have on that radio station to our radio station. We won't have to pay out the ear for, for advertising. He, honest to God, the amount of events that we had running, he was practically supporting other radio stations, like keeping them afloat financially. Yeah. With the amount, and it just made sense. It made sense, and because of I'd been working for a supplier for a while at that point, like for years, and it was like the team that he had. Not that we couldn't fail, but we had a good chance of making this work, and everything was in the right place. Someone, I think it was Majestic, was doing someone told me was doing like a live thing the other day, and was talking about pirate radio, and was talking about Subjam, and he was saying, we were running Subjam. I don't think it's, I think it is public knowledge that Majestic was part of the Subjam team, keeping it on air. And he said, and then True FM come along like Man City, with all of this money. I mean, I know what he's saying. He's saying it with tons of respect, and he's a really nice guy as well. Yeah. So he would never say anything out of spite or whatever, but it was true. Like, we came along, and it was like I suppose they knew that these boys can make it work, and we did. We really made it work.
I remember, like, it was at this weird time where, so when I was growing up, the main stations you had around South was always Flex FM, Flight, and Delight, and there was a couple of others. And Flight and Delight a lot of the time are coming from pretty similar places, and Flight and Flex didn't really get on, and there was a couple of other stations that were local and whatnot.
Yeah.
And things around 2004, there was a few major incidents. Guns and things like that came into play, and it all got a bit mad. And around that time, the pirate scene in South kind of half died.
Yeah.
And Delight had already gone. So Solid have kind of blown and peaked and disappeared, and so Delight sort of just wilted away after that. Flex, I think Flex kind of hung it up as well, so it was kind of like, and Flight closed because of everything that happened. So I remember, like, when I got onto what was World FM, which was all the guys that were on Flight basically started an internet station. But it was 2005. No one was really on internet radio then. No one really cared.
No one knew. Yeah.
No. I remember being a massive pirate head from when I was a kid, and I remember trying to pick up most of the stations from North London. And then when I moved up there in 2005, it was sort of like the tail end of Extreme, and I remember listening to Sub Jam, and I remember listening to Shine even when I was living in South. But then you guys sort of popped up on the dial, and I think the first show I heard on there was maybe, it might have been Danny Blaze or Danny C or someone, like it was someone like a Danny someone. And I remember listening to it and just thinking, like, the sound quality was impeccable. Obviously living in Islington, it was a bit more local than it was if I was living in South. But I just remember there was no time of day I tuned in where it was boring.
Yeah.
And
one of the biggest compliments that was ever paid to me as being a DJ on there was a guy that used to work for us in the rave sometimes. There's a DJ called Mr. Mix, like, lovely guy. And I think I covered a show on a Saturday. Running the radio was, I'm like, if no one else could cover the show, I will just go and do it, because like I said before, live, that's all we wanted. And I remember he said to me, I see him at a rave, and he said, "Oh, I listened to you on the radio the other day." And I said, "Oh, is it? Like, what day?" And he said, "Oh, Saturday." And he said, "I didn't turn it off." And I was like, "What do you mean?" And he said, "It's not even like we were, like, properly listening." Like, he said, "We was in the car driving to Lakeside, and I think at this point he was living in North London, so it was a pretty long drive." And he said there was no need to turn it off. It just flowed.
Yeah.
It flowed, and it was never boring. And that's what we wanted from the radio. Ultimately, we were really strict, but ultimately we wanted people to have fun.
Yeah. The shows were fun. The shows were all fun.
Yeah, they were. It's quite hard to find that balance, because you want people to have fun, so you want them to be relaxed in the studio, but at the same time, you don't want them treating it like let's go for a mix up around my mate's ass.
Yeah.
That's something I didn't want personally at all, and we never allowed it. So when we say we were strict about who was allowed up the radio, who was allowed up the studio, what you couldn't say. Sorry, not what you could say, what you couldn't say.
Yeah.
And as nice as I was with all the DJs, we tried to have like a hierarchy, set out clear hierarchy. So if you heard from anyone but me, then you knew it was serious.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, you knew you'd fucked up. I remember we had a meeting once, actually, and for the life of me, I'm not just saying I can't remember because I don't want to name the person, but we had a meeting, and this DJ piped up in the meeting, like, but to the point where, like, I was taken aback by it. I was thinking, oh my God, like, even me, and I'm sort of like looking at Sam, and everyone sort of looked and thought, yeah, he's fucked. This geezer's fucked.
Yeah.
And he never went on the radio again. And it wasn't, wasn't running it like some dictatorship, but we knew what we wanted.
You have to set levels, though. It's one thing that annoyed me with some of the stations that I've played on during my time. It's like, I'd go and do a show, and then a lot of the time I was quite blessed that the people that played after me were usually pretty good. But then there's other times where the guy before me or the guy after me would be absolute dog shit. And you've done a really good show, or you're about to do a really good show, and someone's caught either the end of theirs or the start of theirs, and it just kind of takes the edge off of what you've done for the last 2 hours, or it's put people off from listening to the 2 hours you're about to do.
No,
It's
it's
just,
true.
it's
True.
always something that bugged me, and it's like, I was lucky when I was on like Ice Cold, and when it turned into Image, I had Listener and Pressure on before me. They did like the 4 till 6 drive time, and then we did the 6 till 8, and it was like, that was fine. And then on Sundays, it was like one of my mate Greg Brazil. He did the 12 till 2 on a Sunday when I moved till Sunday afternoons, and that was good. And then after me was Spenny and Hyperactive. So it was like a good continuation of programming that worked, and people didn't get bored, and people didn't want to tune out. And I think that's why a station like True worked. I mean, as I say, I never tuned in and found something boring. Even if I wasn't a massive fan of the music being played, there was always personality on there. None more so than the likes of Supplier, but obviously what Pyro was doing on the breakfast show, like, it's something I've never actually. I mean, I know Pyro. We've hung out a couple of times. I know him through mutual friends and whatnot, but I've never actually sat down at a proper convo with him about this stuff. But he was someone when I was 17 or 18, listening to him on True and a bit on Extreme and other places as well. He was someone that I always really admired and respected with his ability to maintain energy on a radio show. Like, and just be entertaining as fuck. Like, him and Shocks on their breakfast show
really
was legendary.
He really was
legendary.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if everyone knows this, but Pyro is the one who coined the phrase 100% true. Like, obviously, when we named the station True, it was because it rhymed with 100.2.
Yeah.
So it was always True 100.2.
Shine 879.
Yeah, there you go. Like,
it works.
By,
it
like,
works.
mistake, Yeah. And then I remember Sam ringing me up and saying, "Yeah, man, like 100% true." And I was like, "Would you hear that?" And he said, "Pyro." And I was like, "Yeah, that's running." And then it was on every sort of like flyer that we ever printed up. 100% true. It was amazing. The guy, like Pyro. I don't think he knows this, but when I first ever met him, I didn't warm to him, I didn't. I really didn't. I first ever met him. He had a silver Fiesta. I met him in it might have been Finsbury Park. I was doing my own event, and I didn't know where to get flyers from, and I booked Wesley J for this event, and Wesley J said, "Yeah, I can get you some flyers." And then he came and dropped me the flyers or the posters. I can't remember what it was. And Pyro's there, and he just wasn't really friendly. And it was only when I really got to know him, like, he is a top fellow, mate. Like, he's always like up for a laugh, but really professional. Like, really professional. I could say that about a lot of the DJs from True, to be honest. Like, just really professional, and always wanted to improve their shows, But Pyro used to help us out as well. Like, he would get the, what was it called? See, look, this is the technical terms. RDS, the scrolling thing.
The scrolling thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a wizard with all of that stuff. As I said on Paul's podcast, I said, if I was to have a lottery win, and my missus listened to the podcast, and she did already disapprove of the idea, as I knew she would. But if I was to have a lottery win, I'd buy a house, get us all settled and everything else, and then just probably bell Pyro and just be like, "Bruv, it's time. I've got about 50 racks sitting here. We're doing this. Let's get up on the block now." Because I wouldn't, apart from maybe Kanga, I don't think there's many people that have been better than him. The amount of work he's done, like, just the body of work and the people that he's set up for. Like, man's just like, the quality of someone when they get him, asked to set up stations that they're nothing to do with. He was never going to be on an African station, but he was setting up all of their stuff for him. Do you know what I mean? So it's like,
so he was so knowledgeable about it all. But when you spoke to him, you wouldn't think it. You wouldn't think that he had this, like, fountain of knowledge in regards to pirate radio. Like, it was amazing. It was amazing. Like, really good, and another one, a really good guy, and yeah, his and Shox's show in the morning was great. Was great. I remember when they couldn't. It was a real shame actually, because I remember when they couldn't commit to 5 days anymore. Because you know what, 5 days of radio,
it's crazy.
Like, it's a big ask.
Yep.
But it's the biggest show on the radio. Well, one of two of the biggest shows on the radio. So, and if you're on the biggest radio station at that time, and you've got the biggest show, like, a lot comes with that. You get, you know, a lot of notoriety from it. A lot of people start going, oh, they do the breakfast show. And when they couldn't commit to those 5 days, it was a headache. It was a headache for me because I knew the radio functioned better with them doing the full 5 days. But it did still work anyway, luckily. But maybe that's because we were more established at the time.
Yeah. Yeah. It's one of them things.
You know, but for me,
just of trying to actually commit to one show a week was a problem for me a lot of the time. And it's like, if you're doing a lot of other stuff, especially with clubs and everything else, it's like 5 days a week is a slog. And none of us, you know, unless you were doing clubs every other week or every week or blah, 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 none of us made any real money out of radio. So, you know, the incentive to maintain what's essentially a part-time job, if not more than a part-time job, you know, it's a lot. It really is a lot. And I know he was talking on Paul's podcast himself, and he was saying, you know, one of the reasons he wouldn't do it now, obviously, is also the music aspect. Is it's just like when he was on True, there was so much, like, it's weird. It's a weird thing because everyone said around that time garage was dead, but it absolutely wasn't. Like, there was so much new music that he was playing every single fucking day, and it was all decent music as well. And like, you know, that's also, I was sitting there today, and I was downloading some music this morning, and I was sitting there thinking, one of the reasons I couldn't probably commit to a full-time show myself is because I always liked to play fresh stuff as well. So when I did my flight show, I was always like, you know, I've got to have at least 20 new tunes for this week's set. And I'd hunt down until I found something. And then I'd have like some staple stuff that I'd be playing for the month. And then I'd kind of rotate it out, you know, it was like that. And again, it just goes back to what I was saying about True. It was never boring. The DJs always played something decent and new and fresh. And even if someone was playing an old school set, it was like still good. Do you know what I mean? It's not like a lot of DJs were playing old school sets that were like, oh, fuck me. Like I'm hearing, you know, Flowers again, you know, like it was always fun. So yeah, Pyro show for me was something on a daily basis that I listened to almost every single morning.
Like I said, it's the biggest, like that's 7 till 10, I think we used to do, is easily the biggest show on the radio, because it's the most important. It's when people are jumping in their cars and going to work, or getting ready to you know, to walk to work or whatever.
What time was your show?
On there? So, God.
I vaguely remember hearing you a couple of times at like a 2 till 4 or something like that. But
I used to do. So I did see. Look, I'm looking at the timetable now. So this is obviously the updated timetable, because I actually did the breakfast show on Wednesdays and Thursdays. But let's look at the old timetable. 2 till 4.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
2 till 4. 2 till 4 on a Monday and 2 till 4 on a Thursday.
Yeah, I vaguely remember it being like the last thing I listened to at work before we knocked off. Like that's why it sort of always rings in my mind.
Yeah. But I mean, any show, and this is the thing about True FM, was the listener interaction. It cannot be like it was amazing. It was amazing. Every DJ that we gave a show to, so they would ring me after their first show, and I would always wait for the call. I'd wait for it, you know? And they'd call me and go, I can't believe how busy it is. I can't believe it. No. And you're talking people that have been on like every radio station you can think of, and they're ringing you up. Like I'd been on Sub Jam, Shine, but I didn't have my own show. I'd been on Rinse. I had my own show on Rinse. And that was it. Like, and, you know, Shine FM's phone line was busy. And it's hard to measure the popularity of a radio station, a pirate radio station, because the only data you've got is listener interaction.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I promise you now, I swear to God, like I'm a good friend with Nicky S. And they used to be on a Sunday, Nicky S and Nike. And whenever we talk about the radio now, like we might have a conversation and he'll always say, Delight FM was the best. It was the best radio station I've ever been on.
That was where I used to listen to those guys in South. They used to kill it on Delight.
They kill it. They used to kill it. Oh. They used to kill it. And I was saying to him, I used to say to him, yeah. I said, like, but you can't deny that True FM's phone line is the busiest you've ever known. Yeah. And Nick being Nick, he's always a bit like, no. But honestly, you ask any DJ.
Do you know how I know? Do you know how I can tell you without even asking anybody? Was because if you're ringing a pirate station and you can't actually leave a missed call because the line's busy, that station is busy.
Yeah.
I would listen to entire shows where I couldn't leave a one ring because it would just be like number busy, because it's already fucking ringing. Like, so that's how you know.
The first stations actually to have two phone lines. And I'm not kidding. I remember Sam floating out an idea to get a third phone line, and I was like, absolutely not. Like, this can't happen. We can't have ridiculous. 3 phone lines. Mate, he used to like
it take you half a minute just to read out the fucking numbers.
Yeah. And you know what? It was and this is what I mean about how the OCD used to kick in. Sam would go through the supplier would go through the phone book. And he would look for people's numbers. You got to think, you've got like, I don't know how many contacts they could hold them. We used to have these like huge things, and they could hold like, you know, like 500,000 or 500 or 1,000 like contacts. And he would go through each number. I'm not kidding. This is the level that he used to work at, and look for people's numbers that ended with 1002. That's what he used to do. And then he used to ring them up and buy their number. Come on, man, we'll give you 300 quid. 300 quid for your phone number, because we were dying to get those 1002 numbers because they weren't easy to get. Like, but just the phone line interaction for me was one of the. I've never looked at True. I think Sam would probably be the same actually. That I don't suppose we ever look back at it and go like, oh, proud of that. But when I do think about it, like. The great thing was being able to have that confidence to give to a DJ. To like, we've all been on radio stations where you go on and you do a show and the phone line isn't great, and it can be a little bit disheartening. You know, it really can. Yeah. So having the confidence to give a DJ a really good show, say, look, like, you know, it's going to be busy. Like, I promise you, it's going to be busy. If it isn't busy, it means the aerial's gone, or, you know, something's happened. Like,
either that or you just are that atrocious, but you wouldn't have let them on in the first place. So, but the thing is I've done shows where like it's not been as busy, but there's still been some there. But then there's other times I've done shows on all kinds of different stations. I mean, I remember Pulse, for example. I went up to Pulse with one DJ, I can't remember his name, and he was like, the music selection wasn't great. Like, I did a guest mix on there and just sort of changed it up a little bit. And he's a very good DJ, but it's just, I don't think the music was the type of house he was playing. I don't think it was right for Pulse. But then I went up there with Envy, and I went up there and did another show with Mystic Matt, and it was like, what's going on here? Like this, like the phone lines then were bananas, and it was just like, so I mean, it's, sometimes it is the DJ that's just not interacting, and in that case, again, as I say, you know, you can't be boring, especially on a station with a phone line popping like that. And you guys, as you say, you know, you hunted out the people that you knew wouldn't do that, and it works.
Do you know what? And like I said, like, we were quite ruthless in keeping it fun but strict, and there was some big DJs on there that got the boot, like household names that got the boot, because it's just, you know, you can't, the rules apply to everyone.
Yeah.
There's a great picture actually of all of us. We got a flyer printed up. It was like I think it was like the biggest size flyer we'd ever had for the radio, and we got it printed up, and it had a picture of all of us at the back. And what I liked about that picture, and I said this to Sam the other day, that the two of us in that picture were the ones. There was other people, like another person involved in True, but he wasn't there. But what I liked about the picture is that we weren't front and center. Like me and Sam are like buried in the back of this picture. Yeah. Like he's on one side, like, you know, buried in. I'm at the back, buried in, because it wasn't. There was no.
You weren't the Puff Daddy in the video. Like always had to be at the front.
Yeah. And it was. We wanted it to be like that because we wanted everyone to feel like a family. And I know it's cliche because, you know, like you hear, like, radio station, pirate radio stations, where they'll say, "Oh, pick up my Shine FM family" or whatever. But that's what we wanted it to be. We wanted True to be like a family, because I think if it's like a family, you respect it more.
Yeah.
You look out for everyone. And off the top of my head, when we actually got it settled, and there were people that got thrown off, or, you know, asked to leave, or told to leave, sorry. But everyone was pretty nice, like as people. I mean, not just good DJs.
That's important. I think it's something that, and I don't want to sound negative about it, because whenever you say anything negative about a previous experience, people think you're bitter. But I'm not bitter. I'm just going to say it how it is. It was something that when I was on Fat Beats, that was something that we were always trying to create there. But I think the more people that are involved in something, the more chance there are you're just going to encounter dickheads. And I think a big problem in Fat Beats is where we had 3 or 4 studios running, all different genres and blah, blah, blah. You had so many people involved that you just encountered way more dickheads than usual. So we were never able to really fully build that kind of vibe. And again, because it was split across genre and there was so many different, you know, studios and rooms and whatnot, it was really, really difficult to have everyone on the same page all the time. You had different managers running different studios, and they each had a different idea of how things should be run. And then you'd have one DJ that would play like house and they'd play hip hop. So they'd do 2 different shows under 2 different sets of rules in 2 different studios. And it just, for me, like it can't run like that.
Yeah.
And it's a conversation I remember having with Eamon when we were both on the management team together. And it was like, we used the UFC as a great example, where it was like, you've got the 2 brothers that own it and run it, and then you've got one guy that makes all the decisions. Like, and that's, you know, and everyone sort of falls in line and gels with that one person's ideas and gets behind it. Whereas there were so many, what's the word? Like there's just so many pilots trying to steer that ship or trying to fly that plane.
And this is where I give so much praise to Supplier, because he could have made that work. And I know what you're saying about having more people there creates more problems, and it kind of does, but it doesn't have to, because if you're all singing from the same hymn sheet, it will just flow. But all of this, you know, the way it was run, I'll tell you what, the way it was run was so professional. And I hate saying this because it sounds like I'm just like trying to big it up, because, you know, like I was involved. Like,
no, but this is it.
Of course, it's mine.
Yeah, I wouldn't.
Everyone will tell you this. Like,
I wouldn't want to invite you on here to talk about it if I didn't think it was worth talking about. Do you know what I mean? Because I mean, in all honesty, I am like the biggest pirate anorak. Like, I'm on pirate radio forums to this day. I've got like news articles saved of various different things that have happened over the years and whatnot. And it's a culture and something that's just like ingrained within my fucking DNA. So, you know, I would talk to you anyway about it, but you were one of the very first people that I would have liked to have got on, because I just respected what you guys were able to achieve so much. And it was just like,
and quickly as well.
Yeah, it was, and it was just
very quick.
It was so big. Like, living around that area at the time, I was just like, every single like venue that was popping, it had something to do with either supplier or some DJ that was on true. Like
Yeah,
it was hard to escape. Do you know what I mean?
it was, and I think that's where Majestic gets the Man City comparison from, is because we had the raves going, we had this web. Imagine it, just like this vast net that you just cast away, and we had a lot, DJs I imagine that were trying to get on the radio would be like, like bloody hell, like this is supplier, like we could get on the raves, if and this is what we used to do as well. Like we used to have a rotation system, and that's what I mean about looking after the DJs and trying to show them that, look, this is the best. Like you're on the best radio station, you're going to play at these events. And it was a bit of a headache sometimes because we would have people that did other stuff for us on the side, that would be getting an extra booking here or there. So then I might get someone call me up and say like, oh, like, I've noticed that so-and-so is on this event. I haven't played for 3 weeks at an event, blah, blah, blah. It was quite a hard thing to rotate. And then I used to say to people like, look, so that person actually does stuff for us as well, like other things. And I used to say to people like, you're more than welcome to help us out, like, and we can sort you out, like, that was quite a hard thing to juggle actually, and it's probably one of the things that I look back at our mistakes, because I'm bigging it up here like we were like perfect, but we made loads of mistakes along the way, and that's one of the things I would have hoped to have gotten my head round a lot better, is that rotation of DJs playing at the events, because people would, you'd be playing at like at Purple, you'd be playing at Opera or 195 or in Epping, and then other DJs would be at the big one, be at Pure Temptation.
Yeah.
And I could imagine sitting there as someone who just pays their subs, comes on the radio, does a little, an event here or there for us, thinking, oh, bloody hell, like, how come I'm never on Pure Temptation?
Mm.
And it was a genuine thing that I used to try and combat, but I don't think I ever grasped it as well as I could have. It was quite a difficult thing to get hold of, just because spaces were limited.
Yeah.
And I'll be honest, I didn't have the power to say to supplier, he needs to be at Pure Temptation, or she needs to be at Pure Temptation, or he needs to be here, or he needs to go there. She needs to play at this event. I just, I would literally say, okay, at the end of the month, I'd say, okay, next month, so and so needs to play at an event. But the Pure Temptation one, it was like the biggie. It was the daddy.
Yeah.
And ultimately the decision was down to him who would play there and who wouldn't.
Did you used to play a lot of them yourself? Because I never used to. You were someone that. What's funny is I heard through the grapevine years and years back through someone that I'll talk to you about when we finish, actually, because I'll mention a name to you. But this person told me, they were just like, oh yeah, I know such and such that is heavily involved in that. And I remember thinking to myself, just my logic was, well, if they're heavily involved, why am I not hearing them when I go to these events or when I see these flyers? And it always kind of struck me as like you were more of a silent person. It was just like, do you know what? I'm just doing what I'm doing. I don't really.
Yeah.
And I've known a lot of people like that over the years, and I never really saw, again, what it goes back to saying, like, you weren't the Puff Daddy. Do you know what I mean? You weren't putting yourself in the front of everything and everything else. And did you play out a lot, or were you more just selective and just chilled out?
So I was on every flyer. I was on every advert. But I would literally pick and choose.
Yeah.
When I wanted to play. Like Sam would say to me, do you want to play? I'd say, yeah, or not. And I know it sounds crazy, but because we had so much going on, it was like I wasn't taking one for the team, but I knew that to keep this going and going and going, like it needed my full attention. And I suppose I enjoyed running things more than I did actually DJing.
Yeah.
And looking back at it, yeah, I wish I would have played. I mean, look, I played in front of like thousands of people at Eros and, you know, and stuff like that. And
is it one of them things that where you had so much going on, you never had that fear of missing out because there was just so much popping at that time? Whereas like, I think when I first started on radio, the second an event came up, even if it was just a warm up, I hadn't really done that many clubs. And it was like, yeah, I've got to play. I don't care if it's like, I don't care if I'm playing to the bar staff. I need to go and DJ at this place and this place. But when you, because I don't know when that opportunity is going to come again, but when you've got 3 events every week, and you've got so much work on regarding those events and the station, it's like, am I missing out, or could my time be better spent elsewhere?
Yeah, you know what? I always remember Sam, when we released the Pure Temptation DVD, he was gutted that I wasn't in any of the footage. And it's one of the reasons why my song's on there. So, or mine and Unique songs on there. He was saying like, you know, like there's none of the footage is of you, like, you know, like it's like you're a part of this, like, you know. And that didn't bother me. Like, when I think about it and I go back to when I first ever DJ'd for him, where I wasn't working with him, it was like that hype was great, and I suppose I kind of lost it, but I don't want to sound ungrateful at all, because, you know, even like I said about like trying to sort out DJs to be playing in certain events, and when I get DJs like, you know, not upset but just like voicing their concern that they haven't been playing at events, I don't want to sound like I'm ungrateful and I'm like, you know, it does, you know, like whatever, but that wasn't the number one priority for me. The number one priority was everything that we had going on at the time. It took quite a lot of work, and I think if anyone speaks to Sam, but trust is it's a big thing in life, but in those circles, it's paramount.
Yeah, and absolutely.
I mean, he'll tell. I remember it got too much for me at one point because we had so many events on, and because we had the radio, which was massive at this point. We had so much on and such a small team because of trust. Like, you know, I could have 20 grand sitting on the table and Sam could have 20 grand sitting on another table, and he would know that neither of us would touch a penny of it. You know, it's really hard to let people in. Yeah. And I mean, I've never spoken to Sam and said, like, at what point did you trust me? Like, I sort of just knew when he trusted me because of various things that we were doing and that I was privy to at the time, like certain things going on. There's a lot of stuff that Sam never told me, and that was sometimes to protect me, you know. But I don't know. I do feel like I missed out a little bit in regards to DJing, because I did enjoy it, and there's the reason why I got into it. You know, it was one of the main reasons why I got involved.
Out of the ones that you did do, out of the events that you did do, is there any in particular nights or sets that you played that spring to mind? It's something that I ask I ask DJs just in general conversation.
Yeah,
When was the favorite night you played? And it's something I'd like to
yeah.
ask Pyro, but every time he mentions it, he's always too pissed to remember when he played. So, um, but no, is there any, you mentioned Eros and I only ever went once before it closed down, but is there any other nights or anything in particular that springs to mind just about one of them nights where everything kind of comes together and you just smash it?
See, and this is the thing. Now I'm going to say that there's been a few, and there has. Like I've literally had every MC you could think of, like MC on my set, or I've played at all of the big clubs, like Ministry of Sound and that. But when I think about it, we had an event at Scala. It was probably Pure Temptation, and I think I did like an earlier set. Like I think I did up 12 till 1 or something like that. And like you said, everything just fell into place.
Yeah.
And what was nice about it is we had, who was on with me at the time? So I think it was DT and Kofi B, and then Supplier joined it. But you could sort of hear it in Kofi B's voice that he was happy for me, which was weird. Like, because like you said, like, he'd never really seen me DJ or whatever. Yeah. And after that set, I think I've got a recording of it, actually, a clip somewhere. I'll have to try and upload it to you or something like that. But it was what I loved, actually. And it was like that sort of aggressive bang, like banger, not just banger after banger, like banger, bring the crowd down a little bit, then bang, hit them again, It just fell into place. And I remember it must have been about 7 months after that event. I was walking through, what club was it? It was a small club. You know what? It could have been a bar on Kensington High Street, Archangel, something like that. And this guy with like kind of dreads come up to me and he was like, "Oh my God, I remember your set from Scala." And then I was thinking, "Bruh, this is nuts." Like, he remembers it, but I remembered it because I was buzzing from it, mate. I remember walking through the crowd. I was going back to where the where we kept our stuff for the event to go and put my records back. So I didn't want to leave them up near the DJ. And people were just like patting me on the back and like going mad. And it was a great experience. I did have another experience actually where this is a weird one. I was playing Garage Nation in Margate. No one knows who I am down there. Like, we don't boom out that far. They might have seen my name on some flyers. But what I loved about it was, I remember I played, I think it was Follow Me, but it had like the BQ jingle all over it. And the crowd started singing it, but they were actually singing my name, which was nuts. And yeah, it was another moment, a surreal moment. But I suppose when I think about it, I've had a lot of moments DJing, which now sort of make me feel a bit bad for saying that, like I was picking and choosing, and I would like rather go, rather concentrate on other things. But mate, I played to some huge crowds and like Supplier, he wouldn't let anyone play. Like, it doesn't matter how much he trusts me or how much he likes me or how much, like how much we work together. If I couldn't DJ, I wouldn't be up there.
Yeah.
And this is one of the things that I was with my running partner the other day, and I was telling him that I'm doing this podcast, and like I said, like, what does he want to speak to me for? Like, I ain't been doing this for years, And then my mate's going to me, "No, it'd be good, mate. It'd be good." And then I thought about it, and I thought, you know what? If there's a DJ out there that is sort of, at a crossroads, or is just coming into it, or even if they've been doing it for a while, like, if anything I say today can help them in the slightest, even if someone's starting a radio station or owns a radio station at the moment and is trying to improve it or whatever, if they can take just one thing from this podcast and apply it to them and it works, then job done.
Yep.
For me, like I don't care if it's one person,
Yeah.
Because I think in our, I hate calling it a scene. I don't know why it cringes me out.
It does my fucking
it's
head
horrible
in.
scene. Like even Unique does it to me, or Midi Logic, his name is now. But like Unique will say it to me. He'll say the scene, and I'll go, "Oh, don't say that."
It's one of them things that like I used to get rolled up. You know, when I was talking to you earlier about like getting blocked by certain DJs and stuff, it was that kind of phrasing and that mentality was something that always grated on me to the point of like, what fucking scene? Shut up! Like,
I know.
It's just.
I know. But and I can't call it our scene anymore anyway, because I'm not involved. And it's quite nice actually looking back, like sitting back and watching it now.
Yeah.
Like I can watch it like without. I suppose when I was involved in it, like I would, I'd listen to other radio stations. And if I could, and not just pirate ones, legal ones.
Yep.
And if there was anything I could take from that and go, we need to apply that to here, but we can finesse that, do that. Like I never got to enjoy it just listening to the fucking radio.
Yeah.
It was because your mind is always working. I remember speaking to Danny C once, and we were saying about what we listened to in the evening, and he said to me, I just can't listen to music. I have to listen to like the radio.
Mate, that's why I listen to LBC now. Like I just, it's very rare that I actually sit down and listen to a DJ on the radio now.
Yeah, you lay there and you're like, if you're trying to chill out and you're listening to music, as a producer or someone involved in it, all of a sudden you're breaking down snares and hats in your, and
it's something I do at festivals. It's something I do at gigs. Like I can't, not to be a prick, but like I can't go and hear the same things that other people hear. So like if I go to a festival with my missus or a concert with my missus and there's a DJ there and I'm listening, it's like her and people like her mates or whatever might be enjoying it, and I'm just there like, oh no, he should have maybe just turned the bass down when he brought that in, and like I'm just critiquing every little bit of his mix, because I'm like, and the best nights that I do have is when I listen to a DJ play a set and it pretty much matches exactly how I would have played it, because then I can still listen to it and think what I would have done better, but I can still enjoy it. And a prime example of that is Grant Nelson. So like I've DJ'd.
That picture we've used to, by the way, is actually classic.
I've warmed up for him a couple of times, and he is one of the nicest people you could ever meet. And he pretty much is like my idol, really. Like the music he's made, his style, and everything else. Like, but when I've warmed up for him before, I can stand there and watch him play, and I'm like, that's exactly how I would have done that. But he just does it so much better than me. Do you know what I mean? It's like, and it's like or I'll listen to him and go, fuck, I wish I could have, like, I need to take that from him. I need to, that little technique of where he looped that and brought that bit in. It's like, mate, the guys are, if anyone ever gets to, if you're the sort of person that really enjoys EZ and the stuff that EZ does with cue buttons and things like that, and you want to hear it in house and you don't want it to be too over the top, because when people do it over the top with house music, it sounds awful. But if you want to see a master on a pair of CDJs when it comes to house music, just go and stand close to a DJ booth when Grant Nelson is playing on 3 or 4 decks. My God.
Nuts.
But yeah, it's the same with radio though. It's like, I can't, there's a lot of pirate DJs I just cannot listen to. Like I just think to myself, oh really, like, are we doing this? And it's not that I think I'm a better person or anything like that, but it's just like, I took a lot of pride in what I did, and I always feel like I always feel like things should be done a certain way. And when I hear some of the crud that I currently hear on radio now, I'm just like, and
and I think with True that we although getting people to do their shows was you know, everyone's got a normal life and jobs
Yeah.
and stuff. So you've got to think of those people that are doing shows during the day,
Yeah.
you know, who don't have, you know, shift work or whatever. And it's quite difficult, but we did still try to put people in the right order.
Yep.
And it wasn't like, I don't know, like how some stations do it, like the DJs that aren't the best on the station don't get the best shows. We never did it like that.
No.
Because we had confidence in every single one. And I remember someone asking me, "Who's your favourite DJ on True?" And horrible question to answer, but I'll be honest, I never looked at it like that. I had favourite days on True. There was days that I enjoyed more than others. I enjoyed Sunday, for me, was the best day, and I always used to say it to Sam, to Supply. I used to say to him, like, Sunday is our perfect day. Like, you cannot get a better day than Sunday. It had, look, I'll get it up now, who we had. So we had, here we go. On Sunday, we had a guy called Bilston on in the morning.
I remember Bilston. He used to, was it Bilston and Padre? They used to do stuff together.
Padre and Bilston, yeah, that's right. We had a guy called DJ Blitz. He was on after him. Then we had Johnny P, and it was all like, it was such a smooth transition. So Bilston was still on a hype from sort of like being there because he used to do the late nights on a Saturday and into that Sunday, and then like, you know, that's a graft.
It really is
proper graft. But like that Sunday used to be seamless, and you go into Terry Too Smooth's show, and he used to play like lovely, like vocal two-step garage that wasn't in your face. You know, it was, imagine going to a rave on a Saturday night when you know your whole life is just kind of music and raves, stuff like that, and then tuning into True on a Sunday, and then you've just got this lovely, nice, subtle vocal garage, you know.
It's why when I did my show on a Sunday evening on Fat Beats, it's why I called it the Weekend Wind Down, because it was just it was because I was DJing Friday night, Saturday night, probably doing a cover show at some point on a Saturday as well, and then Sunday it was like Weekend Wind Down. I get to go and play my soulful house music, take everyone down from the weekend, and that was perfect way to end for me.
And but you can do that consciously because you're a DJ. The listeners don't know that. Like the listeners don't know that you've properly thought about it. You know, you've properly thought about this, and then you look. So after that Terry Too Smooth show, you're going to Scott UK and DJ Battle, both local lads to Islington, and same again. It sort of crept up a little bit then at that point. And then Graham R would do a show, and that could, you know, Graham was a lovely fellow. He used to work for us as well. And then after that creeps up, you got Nicky S and Nike, you know. And then it would go into the Dirty Outlaw show, which, you know, another bunch of his little lads who hyped it up for Sunday night. It was, I used to love, and you know, you wouldn't look at the Sunday DJs and say, you know, they're big names, like Nicky S and Nike, obviously, but you wouldn't look at the rest and say those names are huge.
No.
You know, but it just worked. It worked. You know, we had great people on our radio station, and you know, from it just sort of fell into place really. And we had a guy called DJ Iron who used to, I can't remember what record label he was working at the time, but he was working for a major record label. He used to hook us up with interviews with all these artists. So he'd come to me and say, "Yeah, I've got, like, you can interview this person, this person, this person." I remember he come with an interview for Fat Joe, and I'm like, "It's a garage station, like Fat Joe, like, you know, what are you talking about?" And, like, I should turn that one down. I couldn't think of anyone that could do it, and but just having those people, and he was always there to try and like help out, and that made it more professional. Like the interviews that we got, I remember once I interviewed they're called H2O and Platinum.
They
did a song called What's It Gonna Be?
Yep.
And I remember interviewing them. I went to this studio in Great Portland Street, interviewed them. And that's what I mean. Like, these interviews, they weren't like them coming up to the radio. The ones that he would hook up, you will go into these professional studios,
sit down, record them and play it.
Mate, it was insane. Like, the setup was insane. I actually think it was called Funky Buddha or something like that. Some sort of Buddha studio. I don't know. And like, you know, this is where like the Kiss FM DJs and all these other DJs would go to interview them, you know, if they weren't going up on the radio. And I remember I interviewed them and then I played it on the radio, and supplier texted me, he's like, "Oh my God, it sounds like fucking Radio 1." You know? And I was like, it does because of the sound quality. And but the sound quality, not only from the studio, but from like what you said at the very start, the sound quality from True FM was on point, and that was because everything was run professionally. We used to buy 500-watt rigs, you know.
Jesus Christ.
But this is what I'm saying. So we used to buy these 500-watt rigs. People were buying like 150-watt rigs.
I was going to say, that's like I think the most I've ever seen was a 300. I think was the most.
500-watt rig. But when you think about it, it's like, and supplier said this to me, do we need to get to Brighton? Do we need to stretch to Brighton? But in my head, I'm thinking, fuck it, get as far out as we can. You know, like, we've got it here. But at that time, like, the guy would go, "Oh yeah, we can do the 500-watt one, but you know, it's going to cost this much." And then I suppose this is where the Man City thing comes in, and Sam's like, "Yeah, man, get one. No, actually, get two."
Yeah, well, that's the thing, though. If your takings are healthy and you're getting money from events, there's no reason you shouldn't reinvest it into what you're doing. You know, at some point that's going to get taken, it's going to blow up, or someone's going to try and nick it. It's just inevitable. It's going to happen. So yeah, why not buy two? Do you know what I mean? And the thing is if you're the trouble you've got there, though, is if you raise the bar too much, you've then got to maintain that standard. So you buy two 500-watt rigs, one of them goes, the next day you're back on with another one. The problem is then if that one goes, you know, the people that you were reaching in fucking Crawley or whatever, do you know what I mean? They might not get you again. But yeah, I mean, that's the risk you run. But the standards are always high, though. I don't really remember a time when True was off for a prolonged period.
And this was one of the main things.
A day or two tops.
Yeah, we were always on top of it. And it comes back to the OCD thing where, for instance, I would have the timetable of all the DJs. And 95% of the DJs were, you know, quite punctual. They were fine. But it would always be like, I would look at the day and go, all right, they might not turn up, or there's a possibility they could be late, but there would always be a plan in place to mitigate against anything like that happening. And that's how the actual roof and the broadcast was set up as well. I'm talking, like, the engineer was, he was amazing. When I think about it, his OCD was through the roof. Like, you know, like he would play us, like, he'd go, all right, B, put a record on so I can hear it, and I'll put it on. But, like, you know, when we're getting back on. And he'd go, and I think it sounds fine. I've got like my earphone in with my whatever phone I had at the time, which was picking up the signal. I'm like, yeah, it sounds all right. And he's like, no. And then we're there for another like 2 hours. You know, because he can hear something. And that ultimately was probably the reason why we got taken off, because we were so professional the way it was run. We talked about these interviews that we were doing. There was a band that Agent X had done a remix for. Never heard of this band in my life. Remember, I got the CD through the post and I was like, oh, this is bad. This tune's bad. So I was battering it on the show. And they got in contact with me, and they said that one of their friends had been listening to the radio. This band got in contact with me, sorry, not Agent X. This band had got in contact said, "Oh, you know, one of our friends said that you play our stuff on the radio," and I'm like, "Yeah, I do. You know, it's great." And they're like, "Oh, I wonder if we could come up for an interview at some point." And I'm thinking, "Yeah, sweet." And I said, "Just to let you know, I play the Agent X remix." I said, "But you're more than welcome to come up. You know." I'm just thinking like it would make the show sound better. And then I just mentioned in conversation, "You do know True FM's a pirate radio station?" And they were like, "What?" They couldn't believe it. Like, and they're like, "My friend didn't tell me this." And I said, "Well, ask your friend. Like, you know, it's a pirate radio station." And we had a similar incident with Kenzie, actually, from, you know, Blazing Squad.
Yeah.
He just come out of Big Brother, Celebrity Big Brother. And
I was just about to say, was he the one that was on like I'm a Celeb or something like that? Yeah, Big Brother it was.
Yeah. He just come out of Celebrity Big Brother, and he said he was starting DJing, as they all do.
Yeah, right?
And he asked Sam. He said to Supplier, "Can I come up on your True FM show?" So he's like, "Yeah, come up." And Sam said when he walked through the door, he was like, "What? It's a pirate radio station." Like, he couldn't believe it because of how it sounded from outside.
Yeah, it really was. It was incredible. Sometimes where, you know, you'd listen to it and you just there wasn't a crackle, there was no over modding, there was nothing that sounded out of place. Whereas some stations, like even stations that I've played on, it's just like, really? Like,
I know.
Is this what's going on? In terms of
what you mentioned, go on.
In terms of the setups and stuff, was it always east, or did you guys have to move around a little bit?
We briefly went to Old Street for a period of time. I can't think of any other aerial sites that off the top of my head, but it was mainly east,
which is quite impressive because I know there's quite a few big blocks in East, but it's not the highest part of London. Do you know what I mean? Whereas other stations that have boomed out in the past, they're always going to be either in Crystal Palace if you're in South, or probably like fucking Highgate. You know what I mean? Yeah, like that's like literally the only places. So yeah, I mean, and again, that speaks to the quality of the setup. If you know you're booming from East London, it's not as easy as it is to do from those locations.
And that's the engineer has to take full credit for that. Yeah. Like I said, I have no technical knowledge at all of how it works. Very limited knowledge about it anyway. You know, I remember being up, well, not being up on the roof, being down below, and he would say to me, like, I would ring him up and say, "No, it doesn't sound great." He's like, "Well, you're not going to get a good signal there because you're right underneath us." You know, I didn't have a clue. I was just like, like, you know, it wasn't really me. But unfortunately, that's what led to our downfall because we were so good. The station next door, down the dial, Kiss, I think we had nearly 30 complaints.
Yeah. You were definitely nicking listeners off them, 100%.
So people would say 100%. It to me, and I'd had it on my show, a similar experience. I didn't pick you up on it actually when you first mentioned it. When people would say, "Oh my god, I was going to listen to Kiss, but I found you guys," and that for me, I remember reading those texts thinking, "Oh my fucking god, this is sick. This is amazing. This is what I want," because
it's perfect.
We kind of modelled ourselves on what we believed Kiss should have been.
Oh, do you know what's really, really mad is I was literally about to say that to you. You guys were what Kiss should have been. And it's one of them things where I would turn on Pyro and Shocks in the morning and they were doing what, I don't know, Charlie Hedges and Bill and Ben or whoever was on in the mornings. I can't remember the names.
Yeah.
Might have even been Reggie or whatever. That was like their show. Yeah. Like that show should have been as entertaining as what Pyro and Shox's show was, and it wasn't.
Mate,
It just wasn't.
so we had an incident, and this is how riled up and the Kiss FM were. And do you know what as well? I would love to speak to someone that was involved in Kiss FM at that point, not a DJ, but someone higher up, because I know we would have been like a headache for them, and not for the reasons that they would want you to believe, that we were cutting into their signal, because believe it or not, there was another pirate radio station, the other side of Kiss, that were notorious for being loud. They didn't have to be that loud. They didn't need to broadcast that loud. And I would listen to it and I would say to Sam, we need to call them because they're cutting into Kiss. They're going to think it's us. But really, in hindsight, they know it wasn't, they knew it wasn't us doing it. But they would lead you to believe that, they were cutting into our signal, X, Y, Z. Absolute nonsense. Because
it happened
like we've been talking about.
It happened with Ice Cold. So when Ice Cold was on 103, prior to that, it was 97.1. And you had loads of LBC listeners would ring up LBC and complain about it interfering. But it was never interfering. The fact was, they were tuning their radio and they were going past, let's be honest, black music that they didn't like. Like they'd go on there and you'd have some ragga MC on there or something, or someone to be playing jungle or whatever. And, your middle class, Chiswick listener didn't want to listen to Sharky P. That was a long and short of it. And
so there were a lot of, I know there was a lot of complaints from that about that radio station to Ofcom about because of where it was situated, it was interfering with Heathrow. I would really like to know. I'm not saying this stuff never happened, but I would like to know how.
I don't think it does, and it's something that I was talking to Paul about on his podcast. I can't see it from all of the pirate forums and stuff that I'm a member of. You get a lot of discussion boards of people who have set up rigs, have built rigs. They understand frequencies, they understand modulation and everything else, and they all say like it's just bollocks. Like it doesn't happen. It's the same sort of thing as what I said to Paul with like regards to running radio stations. That whole thing about, well, people who run radio stations are drug dealers. They use the stations to sell drugs. It's one of the biggest piles of shit I've ever heard in my life. And it's, and they say, oh, well, it interferes with emergency frequencies. Like they don't even use the same bandwidth. Like they just, it's not even remotely close. It's propaganda to shut down people who aren't necessarily paying a license fee for something that, let's be honest, serves the community. Like look at, again, it's a conversation I had with Paul, but you look at the biggest genres that have come out of the UK in the last 30 years, whether it's the acid house movement, jungle, drum and bass, a lot of house music, garage music in particular, grime, dubstep. We're talking about dubstep was like the main music of the UK for 2 or 3 years. Grime now, you look at all of the grime artists that are in the charts now. You look at what people are doing. Big Nasty's got his own fucking TV show. Do you know what I mean? Like, that would not have happened if it wasn't for pirate radio. And for me, the negative publicity is just like, it's insanity to me. Like
that is one of the things that annoys me the most about how pirate radio is looked at. They assume that every single studio is in a council flat, in a tower block.
And I've been to pirate stations that are a better setup than legal stations. Like when I said to Paul again, when I was on Represent, it was across the road from S-Dance Studio, where that was at the time. And I was playing on both stations. I was on a legal station on a Saturday and I was on S-Dance on a Tuesday. And there wasn't much difference. There really wasn't much difference in the equipment. So.
Easy, mate. There's not. And that's what, when Supplier got arrested, they actually laughed at him when he said it's just a pirate radio, and they laughed and they said this isn't a normal pirate radio station. Don't kid yourself.
It's interesting
but it was.
You mentioned there when he got arrested. As I say, I was watching the Drown City documentary, and he says something about when it actually happened that cracked me up, because I knew when I first watched the documentary, I remember hearing him say it, and I was thinking, I breathed a sigh of relief when he said the same thing that he said. So he said that he could see on the camera that there was a group of people outside the studio. And when he realized it was the old Bill, it was like the happiest he'd ever been, because he knew that
Yes.
it was police, and he was going to get nicked, but he was at least safe. Whereas if it had been something else, like, and I knew that feeling because I've been in studios where
Could
there's
have been
been
a whole lot
problems.
worse. Yeah.
There's been problems, you know, and I've been around people that have gone and done some mad shit with other stations and whatnot. And it's like, boy, yeah, I think if you're going to be met by 15 people, I'd much rather just get nicked than deal with any of that.
Yeah, and this is the thing. So it's a criminal activity. Let's not dress
Of
it
course
up.
it is.
What you're doing is a criminal activity. So at that point, your life, it's not lived like a criminal, but when you're on the radio as a DJ, you know, you have to have your wits about you. It's almost like, you know, when you're a career criminal, you not only have to look out for the old bill, you've got to look out for other criminals as well.
Yep.
And that's what it was like. And that's why it was sort of the pirate radio community policed itself.
Yeah. It's also one of them things where it's like, if you're, you know, for example, if you sell weed and someone nicks your weed, you can't report them for theft. Do you know what I mean? So if someone nicks your rig, you've got to deal with that internally. And, you know, I know we touched on someone's name that shall remain nameless that was a notorious rig thief and a complete pain in the ass. And people like that,
he was.
You've got to deal with them separately. You can't. It's a weird thing, and I think that is obviously. I think rig theft, more than anything, is probably where so many problems come up over the years, and stations cutting into each other. But you know, with True, as again, you guys are just so professional. Like, it never really seemed like that sort of station to cause problems. And I know when Flight got taken off around about 2004, it wasn't necessarily, I don't think they were bumping into any other dials or anything like that. It was literally the beef aspect. Like, there was so much mayhem going on between them and another couple of different stations. And you know, I love those guys to death. Like, I'll always be mates with them. But there were some people on Flight that they're just aggy guys. Do you know what I mean? And when, you know, when there's incidents with guns, you know, kicking off around, you know, white suburbia, like, it's not really going to last too long. And I understand it, but you know, as I say, with True, it always just came across as such and a lot of other stations as well, not just True, like, always come across as a professional outlet. But yeah, as I was listening to the story of when Supply got nicked, as I say, and I did relate when he said he was like happy to see the old bill. I was like,
I mean, I remember when he got, I mean, so we'd had a studio raid after that. Oh no, actually, I think it was after the Supplier arrest.
I remember on Paul's podcast, Pyro said he got nicked one time for the radio for doing I think it was the True Breakfast show at the time. I think I remember him saying that he got nicked, and he was using CDs, and they were just sort of like, oh yeah, we took his music, and he was just sort of laughing to himself like, I could have them burnt in another couple of hours. But he said they hit a lot of stations at the same time, and he turned up to court, I think maybe with Terry or someone else, and it was just like everyone's.
That's right. It was Terry. Yeah. You're right.
He was talking about it on the podcast, and I was just cracking up because it's just like so many other stories you hear over the years of different people. I was lucky. I mean, I remember the rig got pulled when I was on Flight once. But yeah, I never had anyone at the door or anything like that. I was like,
when we had the Cable Street, we had 2 studios in Cable Street, and that's, I remember it might be my regular show, or it might be the breakfast show I was doing, and it went off air, and I called the engineer who lived quite, well, not close, but like not too far, and I said, hello mate, I said, like, I've listened to the radio, like, everyone's saying they can't hear it, whatever. And similar to thing when I was on Shine, he said to me, he went, B, you need to get out of there right now. And I said, what do you mean? But this is what I mean. I don't understand. To this day, I mean, I should have asked him. No, but he said, they're coming to the studio.
Yep.
And I was like, what? And he said, you need to leave right now. Take everything with you. So that was it. I was out of there. And I went and got him, picked him up, and then we parked back up at Cable Street. And I was sitting there waiting. And I said to him, you sure they're going to come? And he's like, 100% they're coming. Maybe in total, I'd been out of the studio, I'd been off air for 25 minutes.
Yep.
And this van rolls into the to the car park, and he went, that's the van. and it had like this mad window on the side with this sort of crazy aerial.
Yeah.
And 3 blokes got out, went up. They knew exactly what studio we were in. They went up to the studio, and I'm like, bloody hell, this is crazy. They're right there, you know. And I remember them having this, it could have just been their radio that they used to speak to, I don't know, whoever. But I remember it looked like a mad unit that they had. You know? And I said to the engineer, like, because that's it, they went up and then they come back down. And they were getting stuff out of the van. And then they all started walking towards the entrance again. I said, fuck this. I said, I'm going to get out and I'm going to follow them. And he went, what are you doing? I said, they don't know who I am. I'm just going to follow them. And I followed them up the stairs. And I think at that point, I think Roll Deep Studio was above us. And so I just had a sort of as like a cover story that, you know, if they would say, who are you?
I'm Wiley.
I'm scratchy, yeah. Yeah, I could be scratchy now actually with this lockdown trim going on here. But I said to him, and I followed them up there, and they were laughing as they were walking up the stairs, and they were going, "Yeah, we must have just missed him." But they couldn't have done anything to me. I don't know if they had the power of arrest. Like I would never have been arrested that day, but. And I suppose I wonder, did they just wait for me? Did they wait the 25 minutes before they come to the studio to know that I wouldn't be there?
Sometimes.
And they, and they took us off there. And one of the scariest things about that here was that, like an absolute idiot, we got some True FM lighters made up, and I got them delivered to my mum's address. And I left the box in there in the studio, and I didn't know. Yeah, so I forgot about the box. And when we went back up there later on in the evening, the door was, so our gate had been cut off. The door had been screwed shut and padlocked. And I went up there with a guy that used to help out on Rinse. Wasn't Genius. Yeah, another guy, and I'd never had to kick the door off of your own studio before. So thinking about it, it's quite fun actually, booting the door off. But he was saying to me, you need to be careful because sometimes they set up a camera behind the door, you know, waiting to see you.
Fucking hell.
And so we're going in like that, fly kicking the door, you know, like lunatics, and we got in there. And I remember seeing the box. It was the first thing I saw was the box with the lighters. And I thought, shit, you know, what an idiot. So I was constantly waiting to get that phone call from my mum. So I had to say, like, someone's at the door, you know, the police are here or whatever. And it never came. But also, one of the funny things about that is, I'll tell you another thing about that here was, anyone that's running a radio station knows never to use your own equipment. Something happened, our deck broke, and my beloved Technique 1210 I took up there just for a couple of days until we got a new deck, and that got taken.
Fuck.
That's I was at
a Technic getting taken is a lot less painful than records going though.
Big time.
A lot less painful.
What else they took was we had a fruit machine in there, right? just for a laugh.
Every station had them. Every station had them.
Fruit. Well, it was actually who we got the studio from. They had it and said to me, "Do you want to buy it?" I remember like, "I don't want the fruit machine for." And then I said to Sam, "Should we buy the fruit machine?" He's like, "Yeah, fuck it, let's buy the fruit machine." So buying the fruit machine, but we. Pyro actually put our RDS in the fruit machine, so they obviously saw the wire going to the fruit machine, wrenched off the door, and took the RDS. But also as well, I wonder if this is in their like evidence report. They took the fucking money as well.
Bastards.
I doubt they would put that in the report. They probably just I don't know, bought lunch or whatever with that at the time. But then we had to move. But that hit put the wind up a few people actually.
Yeah.
And I remember being in a studio with the cleaner, actually, the frigging cleaner was up there for no reason other than to do some sort of day-to-day, I don't know, maintenance or whatever. Something needed to be done. It wasn't my show or whatever. So went up there, and we had a particular way of letting the other DJs in, like, you know, for your next show. And just say it was like, I don't know, the next DJ was coming on at 2. It might have been about 1:15. There's a knock on the door. And in this studio at the time, it was a lovely studio, actually. Like, the room was huge. And then we had like a booth for the studio. So me and the cleaner and someone else, we're in the main room, and we knock on the door, and we're sort of like looking. I'm looking at the camera, and the guy is deliberately hiding his face. Like, he's got his head down. And I'm like, this don't look good, you know, for one of the reasons that you alluded to before about if it's not the police. And I remember thinking, oh God, to be honest, because it was only one person, in my head, I'm thinking, I hope it's not the police, you know, because there's only one person and there's a few of us in here, it don't matter. But this is how paranoid everyone got. The cleaner, the frigging cleaner, he's looking out the window now and considering an escape. And all that is, it's a 20-foot drop onto this sort of thin fiberglass roof, which you would go through another 20 foot. So you're talking a 40-foot drop once you hit the roof. And I'm not kidding. He started taking the curtains off. He's going to use it as a rope. And that's the level of paranoia that it got people. But it wasn't. It was this lovely DJ that we had on called Craig Mack, who was a really nice guy as well. But it just got everyone so paranoid.
Yeah.
And prior to Supplier's arrest, he actually had another incident at another studio. And this is probably, he'll admit, it's probably like a bit of a catalyst for it as well, for the actual eventual sort of closure of the station. He saw people outside and he chased them out of the studio and chased them into their car, and they got off and drove off. So it probably didn't sit well with the people at Ofcom at all.
I think when there's incidents around, it's like anything. It's like if you've got a club or if you've got a bar or something. If your bar constantly has trouble outside, you're more likely to get shut down by the old bill, even if you're towing the line of everything else. You know, it doesn't matter who you are or what you're doing. Again, it's the same thing for stations. Even the tiniest little excuse they've got to single you out. I mean, they do it. They admit they do it as well. I know they were talking about Rude FM, when Rude FM was up like Highgate kind of way. They were hitting them twice a day. Like, they would literally wait. They would wait at the bottom of the block for the geezer to go up there and set it up again, and then they go up there and cut it down just for the sake of it. Like,
we actually thought at a point that our rigs were getting stolen by other stations or sabotaged by other stations. But you know, after Supplier got arrested, you become you know, you have access to different information now. And it wasn't. It was Ofcom, and a lot of those Kiss FM complaints were a big factor in that. Like, you know, we got under their skin so much so that Robin Banks, the breakfast show DJ, and we used to have a strict rule on the radio station: you cannot answer the phone under any circumstances. And this was to do with an incident that had happened where I think I broke down, or me and Supplier broke down once. We were out postering for an event, and the AAs, I'd said, I don't know where we are, and the AA said, can you allow me access to your phone to allow us to track your exact location? And then since that day, we were like, absolutely nobody can answer the phone in the studio, because we were
keep the phone in a crisp packet.
Yes. And anyway, so it was a guy called Shifty, or Mr. Shifty, I think he was known at the time. and he was covering the breakfast show, I believe. And he gets this phone call, private number. He ignores it, keeps ringing, keeps ringing, keeps ringing, keeps ringing. What he doesn't know is that on Kiss FM, live on the radio, Robin Banks receives a message saying, I can't quite hear you, I keep getting interference. And Robin Banks is reading this out, and he says, shout out to whoever, whoever the person's name was, I know why you're getting interference. It's from a guy called Mr. Shifty, and we've got him on the line right now. They're playing Mr. Shifty live on Kiss FM, and he's answered the phone. And he's obviously like, hell's going on? But this is like, it's Robin Banks from Kiss. You do know you're cutting into our signal and stuff like this. That's how much we got under their skin. And they had it in for us, and to be fair to Mr. Shifty, he didn't. I think anyone would have answered the phone at that point, because his excuse was that he thought it was me ringing him, and it wasn't. But yeah, we really got under their skin. I don't ever want to say that they thought of us as a threat, and I kind of knew that us ever getting a license was quite slim anyway. If you look at stations like Rinse, who had been actively trying for a long time to get a license, and one of their USPs, their unique selling point, was that they were different.
Yep.
So, and that was one of the reasons why they got their community license initially. And they do great work for music in general. So, but us, like we said before, we were what Kiss should have been.
Yep.
And
what Kiss were at one point. If you look at Kiss in the early 90s, it's what they were. Yeah. It's interesting that when you look at Kiss's history, it's quite interesting that fast forward 20 years and fast forward 10 years and a pirate station pisses them off so much.
That's exactly, I know, and you would, I don't know, like I would like to think if I was in that position, that not that I would give a pirate radio station advice being from a legal station, but definitely maybe contact us and say, look, we see what you're trying to do, and because we weren't going anywhere. Yeah. But ultimately, you've got to think, like, they're paying a huge license fee, and I suppose if you were paying that license fee and you were looking at a station thinking, Jesus, like these guys are good at what they do, their music is good, they're actually, if we let this grow, this could be another competitor for us.
Yeah, it does affect their ad revenue as well. It really does. Like, especially with a station, as successful as True, or you look at other stations like Freeze FM, that was sort of in my mind
massive.
Yeah, in my mind, Freeze is probably the best ever station. And I'm really glad
for a lot of different reasons. Yeah,
I'm really glad they're making a documentary about it at the moment as well. So I'm really happy about that. But yeah, I mean, True was one of the best out there for me. Freeze was another one. Obviously, Flex have gone legal, and then there's Rinse as well. But like, you look at them in terms of pirate and the audience they were getting. I mean, Deja Vu as well was another one that they were talking about when Deja was at its peak. I can't remember the name of the chap who used to run it, but he was talking about they actually, for some reason, the authorities managed to somehow figure out roughly how many listeners they had, and they were competing with the likes of Radio 1. Just for a small period of time, but they were. And it's like, at some point, a station like Kiss that relies on commercial revenue, when you've got someone that's playing music that's aimed at the same age group, it is more fresh, it is more underground, it is more entertaining, it's less structured, it's still pirate, it's just fun. It's going to take a massive chunk out of the listenership, and when their radar numbers come through and stuff, they're just going to look at it and just be like, we can't charge advertisers as much. And I mean, Kiss sold for like 40 million or whatever, so it's a money machine. It's like,
and that
sort of and that sort of stuff, if it has any effect on them, bottom line is rich people want to stay rich, right? And they can't do that when the rebels are out there taking away the audience. I wanted to go
No, I
into,
know.
with Supply getting arrested. Um,
Yeah,
I remember at the time I was on Fat Beats, and I know him and Lauren came and did a few shows on there. And I don't know why that was. I don't know. There was talk of him coming on full time, because I know he'd kind of just been like basically told by the old Bill, like, if you go back on again, like, it's curtains for you. Um,
yeah,
and I know he was kind of looking at Fat Beats, and obviously he didn't end up going down that route on a full time basis. But what went on for you during that time? Because I remember briefly you had like truelive.co.uk came about.
yeah.
Was that an attempt to rebrand as an internet station while still keeping the FM on, or was that something you were looking at? Because I know it started and then it didn't really. It's weird because I talked to Paul about it, and that time period, and it's one of the reasons Fat Beats wasn't as successful as it should have been. That time period was that really awkward time period between everyone having internet in their cars and on their phones and stuff, and everyone's still using FM. It was right in that weird period. So was there a plan for True Live as an internet station, or was that sort of a way to try and keep on and keep it going further than it ended up going?
Yeah, so we never really had the foresight, and I think Supply will admit that internet radio would be as big as it is now. Um, it was more of a loophole for
Yeah.
us that we looked at, and a lot of other stations had done it.
Yeah, Deja did it. I know they did Vu Live,
Yeah,
like unknownfm.net, even though it was still booming out everywhere from Highgate.
yeah, yeah,
Like, yeah, there were loads of stations that did it. I was just curious as to whether it was like a long-term plan. Even Sub Jam had like Jam Live or something in a completely separate studio in the same building, and they
yeah.
tried to kind of do the Fat Beats thing, and it was just such a weird time because
Well, we was. I think we were all sort of dipping our toes into it, and
mm,
um, I suppose I wish we would have just persisted. But I'll be honest, with Supplier getting arrested, it had other ramifications.
yeah,
So one of the first things that he said to me when he called me, because obviously you don't hear from a person, the radio goes off, then their phone's off. You don't hear from them, and you know what's happened.
yeah,
And the aerial's gone. That was a full-on dismantle, like, of the radio, everything gone. And the first thing that I get a call, I think it was quite early in the morning when he'd been released, and he said, "You need to get everything out of your house right this second. Anything to do with True FM, because they're coming for you." And I said, like, how do you know this? And I suppose for him, he probably felt a huge sigh of relief. He's there, they're interviewing him, and they're going, "We don't believe you're the main person on True FM. We believe that you just help out on True FM. We believe the main person is," and they said my real name and said, "Who is actually BQ?" And I'll be honest, mate, I was a bit like, shit. At that point, I was studying to be a taxi driver. And,
yeah.
there are certain things you can't do as a taxi driver. You can't have like
A record.
any type of criminal record. So for me, I'm like, I wanted this job to fall back on, this black taxi job. I'm near the end. I can't let this fail,
Yeah.
And so I had to take a huge step back, which I know Supplier hated. He hated it that I had to step back from it, but I couldn't risk it, because at the end of the day, what you're doing is a criminal activity.
Yeah.
And it's not something that, I say you can't make a career out of it, but then you'd look at people like Genius who has, and
Well, even the people that have gone on to do other things. I mean, Sam himself is still smashing it. So it is doable to maintain in music.
But as
pirate radio
from a
long term,
radio
nah,
perspective,
it's not going to happen.
it can't work, and I don't. We were I've known Genius for years, and just having his ear sometimes was great, for loads of different reasons, and that's why Rinse have achieved so much. And it's, you know, he'll often, he doesn't really big himself up about it publicly, I don't think, Genius, but you know, bigs up the person who was always on at the Ofcom trying to get a bloody license, but he put in so much work from early, and he was so experienced in certain things. I had an incident once on True where a certain DJ from a station was, I think he was coming on True. I had nothing to do with it, with this person coming on the radio. The only thing I had to do was find a slot, put him in the right place. And the station that he came from, the guy rung me up and said, "What's that?" I said, "You're right." And the conversation literally went from, "How are you? Yeah, all good," to, "I'm going to find you and put something cold in your chest." And so I was like, but, you know, like, I suppose growing up where we grew up, you just, like, these things, you don't take it with a pinch of salt, a bit more than that, but it's not an empty threat. Like, I know it's not an empty threat,
yeah.
But then he started talking about, you know, how, like, I'm easy to find because I'm on at this rave, you know. But, you know, I equally said to him, we're all on these raves. You're on raves. Like, everyone's easy to find. But it was a problem, but I could see where he was coming from as well, because he's saying, you know, you're taking our DJ, and I'm saying, look, like, I'm sort of like stepping back, saying, I've just been told where to put this DJ. I'm not actively seeked this guy out. Just said, like, you know, like, okay, cool. I said, like, you need to chat to so and so. You know, like, no, I said, I will chat to so and so, and then he proceeded to say, like, basically, I don't care who they are, talking about us lot, about the people that we had with us. But kind of him mentioning them helped me a bit, because he brought them into the frame. And Supplier was out of the country at the time, and I knew the wrong thing to do would be to ring Supplier, because he can overreact, but with the best intentions.
Yeah.
So trying to protect me. So I didn't want to ring him up, because all I thought was, all right, you're out of the country for 2 weeks. You're going to end up ringing him up, giving this guy grief, and then it's actually going to be on tops, you know, while you're not here. So you're going to have to leave. You're going to leave me to deal with it. So I didn't call him. I called the only person who I thought I could call was Genius, and explained to him what had happened. And just that sort of calm advice that he gave me was, mate, it was just a weight off my mind. Like, I suppose when I think back to it, like, the fella weren't going to stab me, but he had an incident actually with another. You might actually speak to someone who was involved in that situation, where they had actually, like, were ready to do something to someone. So they were game. To be fair, he doesn't live too far up the road. I saw him at my friend's funeral in 2019, and me and him were cool. You know, we spoke after that. Even on that phone call, I said to him, like, we're going to have to meet up, like, not to have like a, you know, whatever, but to sort this out. Like, I would rather speak to someone face to face to sort this out.
Yeah.
And, you know, Genius is saying to me, like, don't do that. Don't do that. Like, because it could be seen as, you know, you're trying to, like, act the big man, or, like, which is not me at all.
Let sleeping dogs lie sometimes.
Yeah. But I had every sympathy for the guy, and you know, his station was a good station, and, you know, he must have looked at it like, nah, these lot taking the piss now.
Yeah.
And but yeah, just I suppose just having Genius's ear in that sense in regards to the radio, because Sam, Supplier, as much as he'd been on radios, really, we were doing this fresh. We were both learning on the job. It was one of them things, mate.
Well, I'll tell you what, mate, it was fucking beginner's luck, because you smashed it. It was incredible. And yeah, other stations.
Can I be honest? And I said this to Supplier, that I know we did ultimately fail, because I think pirate radio, to have a good pirate radio station, is about longevity.
How long was it on for, though? It was a good couple of years, good 2 or 3, maybe 4 years.
I would say about, maybe maximum of 3 years, maybe.
Yeah, I remember it from at least 06. I think from like 06 to 09, maybe.
Yeah, I would say definitely, because I remember there was a brief period I was out of the country. To be honest with you,
though, like a lot of stations, there's a few legendaries out there, but I mean, a lot of them, they don't really last that long, No,
but that's what I'm saying. To be part of that select few, because even when we did the events, like the Pure Temptations, Nookie, go back to sort of like Caress days at Rudolph's, like we never wanted to fail at all, and we always thought that we wouldn't fail. Like we'd always have doubts about raves, but that's just because I suppose that's the OCD again. Like we just wanted to get everything right and perfect. Yeah. But I knew we would make a success of it, because I could just, it was more Supplier. I knew we'd make a success of it because of him, not because of anything else.
Yeah, he had a lot of drive. Someone I've got a lot of respect for. Just in that scene, as I say, when I was around Fat Beats and stuff, like it was around the time where he just, you couldn't go anywhere without seeing his name in North London. Do you know what I mean? It was fucking everywhere, to the point where it actually made you a little bit sick. But I just, it was such a, as I say, it was a weird time. And when he went off, and when True went off, it's something I mentioned again when I spoke to Paul about this stuff. It was like, for me, a big part of the vibe of the local area, like that corner of North London, Northeast London, like a lot of the vibe died around the time that True went off. I think a lot of things changed. Shine was always still on, but it wasn't really the same.
That has a huge knock-on effect for music as well. Because music, I don't know if anyone knows this, but Supplier, when Wiley had finished making Wearing My Rolex, he literally had just finished making it. He had sent it to nobody. He called up Sam and said, "I've got a tune it, and this is a bit of you, mate. Listen to this." Yeah. Sent it to him and he said, "Play it on your radio station." Sam played it on his radio station, on his show, on True, and no one had that song. No one got that song for another 3 weeks.
Yeah, I think I do. I think I actually remember listening to it. It was either the first or second time that he played it. I think I was actually
and when he played it, and this is a crazy thing. When he played it, a week later, Wiley, with that Wearing My Rolex, to the date at that point, got his biggest ever record deal.
Jesus, it's mad. But that goes back to what I was saying about how much it contributes over the years. Stormzy doesn't headline Glastonbury without pirate radio.
Doesn't.
And he's not. He himself isn't a pirate radio guy. He'll happily say that, but he doesn't headline without pirate radio. He doesn't headline that really without Deja Vu coming first and Rinse coming first and all the other stations there. Like, he doesn't headline that without So Solid breaking through off the back of Delight and the local following and everything else, and the garage stations in the 90s and whatnot. Even commercial music and soul music through the 80s and the early 90s and stuff. Like, there's so much that the UK actually has to stop and recognize and be thankful for when it comes to pirate. And there's something that I'm going to kind of hammer on this podcast, you know, like a lot of the people that,
Yeah, I think that's the right thing to do.
yeah, a lot of the people that I've got coming on, and a lot of the people that I'm still yet to speak to invite on are all, there, you know, a lot of them are from music. I mean, I've got people that are from other walks of life that I'm going to have real good fun shows with as well. But, you know, there's a lot of people that talking like this and having these conversations and sharing experiences and knowledge and stuff. I think if I can get this out to a broad enough audience, and, you know, maybe show them a different side of British culture that I really think is so underappreciated. It's just so undervalued in terms of what British entertainment industry in general. You know, so many people have come from, you know, even down to the likes of fucking Tony Blackburn was a pirate radio DJ. Do you know what I mean?
No.
Trevor Nelson was a pirate DJ. David Rodigan, fucking, do you know what I mean? Like, these are like David Rodigans are
these are what
these other people have got MBEs and shit, and they're just like,
people don't like the general public don't I don't want to say don't appreciate it. They just don't know it.
They don't know.
They just don't know that these people were born from it. And I think when we did True, is that those are the people that we wanted to listen to our radio, was the general public.
Yeah.
And that's why we had that, like, that sort of KISS setup where it would be commercial during the day. You know, commercial in a sense where the hosting was great.
Yeah.
And the music,
a lot of vocal music
wasn't like, oh yeah, you know, the music was ear candy, like, but yeah, these people just don't realize what pirate radio does or has done for music now. Like, I think about things like, think about why you got into music.
Yeah.
Think about you know, the DJ or the radio station or the song that got you into house music or garage music. Like, I remember, so in my estate, we had Freak FM. They were like 2-3 floors up from my flat. And I remember coming home from primary school and looking up on a Friday and seeing if the aerial was up on the roof. And if it wasn't, it's hard to describe that disappointment.
Yeah.
Like, there used to be a crew on called Bashment Crew, and that was MC 2 Ton, Dollars, and a DJ called Random. And I remember listening to them, and this is like after EZ had long gone, you know, but I remember listening to them, and it was just like, it was hype, and it really got me loving the music. And if you imagine every big DJ now, including EZ, they've got similar stories to tell you, but from their experience that got them into music and got them to where they are today. And EZ influences what people make, like what garage music they make.
Yeah.
You know, it's amazing how all of this, and it sounds so flippant to say and cliche, but pirate radio stations and pirate radio in general have so much. They gave so much to UK music, and I don't know if that will continue. Actually,
no, it's an entirely different system now, and it's weird, and it's one of them things, man. Like, things evolve and things change, but the industry in itself is very different now, and I don't know. I'm not. We always look for that next big thing, right? So we had the UK funky movement. It kind of filtered out. Then you had like the deep tech kind of thing when, you know, Mark Radford and that were really pushing that sound, and that's kind of evolved into something else. And now we've got drill, but drill's not a pirate radio thing. That's more a YouTube thing. You know, it's more social media, YouTube, American influences and stuff. So it's weird because you still have those scenes that will pop up and they will still continue to come through, but it just won't ever be, not to sound like the old fogies that are sitting there moaning, oh, it's different in my day, but like, it really was. And I think, you know, that it was lightning in a bottle from, you know, the early 90s or even the mid 80s all the way up through to, I would say, you know, 2012, 13 latest. I think for me, the radio thing now, I'm not really hearing a lot of great stuff on stations. A lot of the stations that you do hear, you know, are stations that people are just broadcasting on the internet from home, and someone's relaying that on a rig somewhere miles and miles away or whatever. You know, it's not the same as it was. And
it doesn't have the same feel
no,
to it, and
it just doesn't.
I don't know whether that's the just maybe that's technology in general, where you know, you go into people's houses and they say, you know, Alexa, play whatever. You know, they don't. The FM is dead.
Yeah, it really is. It really is.
It's really,
and it's sad, but you know, hopefully we can keep the flame alive doing podcasts like this. I don't want to end just yet.
I think it's great.
I don't want to end just yet because I want to talk about your. Sorry, mate.
Oh, what about the music? No,
I wanted to actually talk about your music.
We've got a delay. We've got a delay. We definitely have got a delay.
Let's give it a second.
Just give it a second. There we go. See how that goes. Go on. I'll let you leave.
3, 2, 1. You're back in the room. Yeah, I wanted to. I don't want to end just yet because I wanted to move on to your productions and stuff with Unique, or as he's now known, Midi Logic. And obviously, you know, it was during the time that you were already doing Pirate and stuff like that, but obviously afterwards you still continued to make the music and stuff. Some of your productions, man, like Jesus Christ, like the remix I think of Closer, the Neo track, and just some of those ones of the commercial R&B that you remixed, like fuck me, like they were so, I don't want to say they were basic because they weren't basic tracks, they were brilliant tracks, but there was a formula to them that just worked as a proper, like if I could turn around and be like, right, I've got an R&B tune, I've got all the stems for it, who could I get to make that so I could play it in a garage set? It's one of them ones where it's like those guys, give it to them, they'll come back with a masterpiece. Do you know what I mean? What was like, how did you two kind of get together, and what was, I don't know, what were some of your favorite releases that you did? I mean, Tender Loving for me was like levels as well. But
so me and Unique, we actually went to school together. So it's quite and we never DJ together in school or whatever. We would DJ at like some parties together or whatever. He was with another group of friends and I was another group of friends. But we'd always talk and whatever. And going to school, it was not everyone was loving garage, but we loved garage and we seemed to love the same garage. And once we left school, I actually was DJing with someone else, a guy called Marky D. And that was because I did my first event on Essex Road with this guy called Marky D. And we just, even when I started doing DJing at suppliers raves, we were still doing it together, me and this Marky D guy. And then like things happened with me and him that just, you just sort of grow apart in regards to music and life, to be honest. But then I remember I would still go around to Uniques all the time. Like he's quite local in Islington, and we would mess about on the PlayStation, make tunes on the PlayStation, like Music 2000, I think it was called. And you'd make tunes, and I suppose we wanted to make music at some point, like properly make music. And I remember I had this stolen computer, and it was stolen. It was stolen from a hospital. My cousin worked at this hospital. Oh God, I can't even say which one it is. And he stole all these computers. They got these brand new computers delivered. And
so do you mean to tell me when you were out on the street at 8 p.m. clapping on a Thursday, you fucking robbed the hospital computer?
Yes.
Dear, oh dear.
And I didn't know how to make music, and I got this computer sitting here, and it was okay, an HS, mate. You know what I mean? It was brand new anyway. And my cousin gave me Cubase software, and it had this other program called Reason attached to it. Didn't really know anything about it. I couldn't even get the thing to work. Like I'm looking at it, and I'm like, all I've got is these shitty sort of preset drums on Cubase. I'm chatting with Unique and that, and like we're talking about music, and he comes up my house once and says, I've got this CD, and he gives me gives me this CD and says, like, I think we could do a remix of this. And this is like the first tune we've ever done. And it's Tender Love. And I'd never heard it before. And I heard it and I was like, oh, right, okay. And I said, we weren't confident enough to sit next to each other and just go, yeah, we can do this, do this. I said, all right, leave it with me. And I got this beat going on Cubase, and it was so basic. And then I somehow had learned, believe it or not, I didn't have internet in Finsbury Park at that point, like in the flat there. And I learned how to, it was called rewiring Reason to Cubase, so I could play the sounds from Reason and even make a beat on this Reason sort of loop system they had.
Yep. And
I've got this like 2-step beat going, the Tender Love beat. And if you actually listen to the snare from Tender Love, it's layered, but it's the main like proper sort of kind of 80s type or like 90s R&B with that big snare. Yep. With the reverb on it. That's just the default one from Cubase. And I got that going, put this Tender Love thing over it, and I didn't know about time stretching.
Yeah.
Not at all. Didn't know what the hell that was. So believe it or not, Tender Love is, if you put it on the computer, the BPM is 140.
Yeah, it is quite a fast track.
Insanely quick, but that is because we didn't know about time stretching. And I just started chopping this vocal, like by hand, like not putting it in a sampler, just chopping. And then it was kind of inspired by like a Sunship tune, like where it would chop and say one word and then chop the same chop and then say the next part of the word. And that's why it's, tender, look around, so love. Like it was, and I remember getting him around my house, Nick, and I was like, this actually sounds all right, mate.
Yeah.
And then he jumped on and he's like, all right. And then he's done the next part of the chop and we've got it all settled down. And then we're like, it needs a bass. What are we going to do? We don't know how to play a bass. I haven't got a keyboard. I haven't got anything. So I remember playing it to Wesley J in the car. I said, oh, can you ever listen to this for me? I made a tune. Played it and he looked at me, he went, I think you got a bullet there. And I was like, what do you mean? And he was like, yeah, you got a bullet. And this was just after Wesley J released Reasons and with DJ XL. And I didn't really think anything of it. And I went on my Sub Jam show and going back to like listener interaction, Sub Jam was actually pretty decent.
Yeah.
But it was still one of them stations where it would be, 10 missed calls for the reload, so it wasn't like mega interaction from the listeners, but it was still a really good station actually, and run by a bunch of lovely guys. And I played it. I bought this portable CD player with me, plugged it in, and I'm like, yeah, I got this tune, like me and my mate have made it and whatever. What do you think? Played it, and the phone line went ballistic. Like it went just through the roof, and I couldn't work it out. And I was like, "Bruh." So I stopped it. I said, "All right, let me rewind it." So I skipped it back to, played it again. Phone line's going mad, and now I'm seeing Sub Jam DJs ringing the phone. They're all ringing the phone.
Give me that tune.
I ain't answering. Yeah, that's exactly where it was. You need to give me that tune. We haven't even got a bass on it, mate. You know what I mean? We haven't got a bass on it. So I had a plan. I thought, you know what? Let's try and get it sort of, like just finessed.
Yeah.
So I went to Danny C. I didn't know him at this point. Just through, I think Wesley J said, I'll go to Danny C and, he can like get it sounding big for you. And Danny C actually played the bass to Tender Love. And I remember when he heard it, Like we gave him all the stems, and I'm sitting in the studio with him. I think, where was it at that point? I think he was in Greenwich. And I said, he went, oh, fuck, who's cut these vocals up with a fucking hacksaw? Who the fuck's done that? Because they were so, we didn't know about like fading stuff out or whatever.
Yeah.
And yeah, it just, that tune just worked, and it was catchy, and it was, it was, I think it was 4/4, wasn't it? 4/4 at the start, and then it drops into 2-step, and that's like MJ Cole inspired.
Yep.
I hate saying that because like we're nowhere near that level of ability, but that's where it came from. That Sunship, MJ Cole, and that was kind of us. And then I'll be honest with you, Tender Love was the best and worst thing that could have happened for us, because we were the victim of our own success. That tune was very easy to make.
Yep.
So we just assumed
everything would be like
was easy.
Yeah.
Everything's easy to make. And I remember going to record shops with Tender Love, and I think it was Uptown. No, not Uptown. Black Market. I went to Black Market, and they fucking mugged me off big time. So, some of the record shops I was going into, they'd already had people asking for it. So it was great. And they would say, yeah, give us 4 boxes. Sweet, bang. So I think in a box you had 40 records in a box. And that was the standard thing anyway. So even if the record shop weren't really too fond of the record or didn't know about the record, about the song, they would go, just give us a box, mate, whatever. I went to Black Market. I want to say it's Black Market. It's either Black Market or Uptown. No, it was Black Market.
They're both in the same little bit in Soho, weren't they? So it's like
they're in Diablo Street, yeah. But and I gave it to the guy, and he played it out loud. And honestly, I knew it was cheesy.
Yeah.
But I didn't particularly care. I liked it. It was, I liked it. I thought it was a good tune. So, but I knew it was cheesy. So I was always a bit like, didn't really want them to thump it, But there you are in Black Market Records, where they've got dubstep on the wall, and there's stuff that's made to such a high standard.
Yeah. And
he's playing it, and he went, "Now we'll take 10." And I remember feeling like gutted, thinking, oh. And I really took it to heart, and I took it personally, to be honest. I still gave him 10, but the great thing was, that was the next day, he called up and asked for a box because it sold out. And even though I had a box there ready to sell, I said, sorry, mate, we've sold out. But I shouldn't have really, I shouldn't have. I should have just said, yeah, mate, all right, nice. But that's me being young and being a bit like, cute.
Yeah, but at the same time, if your pride's going to be a little bit hit by it, it's going to be in it. Do you know what I mean? There's not much you could. At the end of the day, you're going to sell it anyway. So,
Yeah. But with that, we thought great. Like it didn't make us loads of money, but it made us enough money to go, mate, this is it. Like we can do this. And then our next actual release was called Give Me a Little More Time. It was a remix of, I think that's the actual song, what it's called, A Little More Time. Like an old tune that was inspired by, I think Duncan Powell done a song. I can't remember who sung it actually, but it was a similar thing. Like it was like a nice, lovely build up of just like a cappella type, and then it would drop into this 4/4 chopping.
Man, that was Duncan Powell to a T, actually.
yeah, and openly, that's where we got the inspiration for that.
Yeah,
and that actually sold all right, but then the MP3 era joins, and at that point, we're screwed in regards to making records for profit.
Again, though,
just
you came in,
simply
you came
is.
along at that same period of time, like the analog to digital switch, where people didn't know if they were coming or going. Like, do we press vinyl? Do I still buy vinyl? Do I do a pirate station? Do I do an internet station? Like, it was so. Nowadays, it's all just one thing. Like, people still get vinyl pressed and stuff, but in
Yeah,
my
it's
opinion,
more limited edition stuff.
yeah, in my opinion, half of it's just to show off, just to say I've got a vinyl press.
Yeah,
Do you know what I mean? And that's no
yeah,
disrespect to anyone who's doing it, but it's like, for me, like, if you're going to make money off of it, cool. But if you're just pressing it just to have it on vinyl to sell a couple of copies and barely break even, I'm not really sure it's worth the effort. Do you know what I mean?
yeah,
I
yeah.
don't think it makes you get any further in life, in your career. But yeah, I think there was that period of time was weird because, as I say,
It really was weird. Yeah,
people were
and our
still
next
buying
sort of
vinyl,
step,
but and the mad thing is it wasn't like it is now, where like I spent like 3 hours on Traxels this morning. Do you know what I mean? Just going through and like it's this, like, my basket's always like $300. Do you know, I'm never going to pay for all of the shit that I've got in that basket. It's never happening.
got to filter through it. Yeah,
Oh mate, it's crazy. Just like literally like prioritize what it's like. Literally like, do I eat this month or do I pay this bill? That's my Traxels basket.
yeah,
But you didn't have
yeah,
that back then. You didn't have like a proper digital download where, do you know what I mean? You could distribute your music or Bandcamp or something like we've
yeah,
got now, So yeah, I
yeah,
mean, I think if you guys were doing some of the work that you were doing then in this age, like, you probably, maybe not, you wouldn't be making loads of money, but I do think, it'd be vastly different to how it actually went.
yeah. But at the same time, I think probably our mindset was a little bit different, and probably wrong actually, because the money aspect was like, it made it worth putting in that effort.
Yeah.
Whereas the people that are truly great making music, I don't know if they have money in their mind, when they're doing it. And I remember after that second release, we were a bit apprehensive because the other one didn't sell as well. It wasn't a better record, so it wasn't going to sell as well, but it didn't sell as well as we'd hoped because of this era of that crossover that you just spoke about was in full effect. So we had one more release that actually wasn't our song. This was the Test of Water. We released I think it was a Macaron 2-ton song or something like that. And that was done deliberately to see how the vinyl market was going without having that risk of spending loads on records. And that didn't work out. And then we hit this era of pumping out tune after tune after tune. And I'll be the first to admit, some of our songs were shocking. And, do you know what?
But as I say, like the ones that I pointed
matter.
out, like a lot of the commercial remixes of the R&B stuff, it was just so just classy two-step music for the most part. And like the Someone That I Used to Know remix, I think was one of yours.
Yeah, do you know what?
The Neo one.
That was actually quite a good one.
Like if I went out on, when you bought CD singles, you might have a garage remix on it. They were at a level where they could have easily been released as a garage remix. Like, but not all of them. Granted, not all of them, but quite a few of them. Where I'd be like, if I bought that as the official remix, I'd be like, they've done a good job with that. You know what I mean? Can't say fairer.
Our first ever remix where we got serious recognition was a remix that we did of a Kerry Hilson track called Energy.
Yeah.
And I remember EZ playing it, and he was saying to Winston on the radio, he was like, why isn't this the official remix? Like, I don't get it. And he wasn't bigging us up hard or anything. He was bigging the tune up. Like, he wasn't saying like that we're great producers. He was just saying that this should be the official remix. And I remember being on my moped going past, it's so long since I've been out in the cab that I can't remember the road name. But in Old Kent Road anyway, right?
Yeah.
Driving down Old Kent Road, and I could feel my phone going on my moped because I'm like, you know, out studying to be a cab driver, doing the knowledge. And so I pull over, and for some reason, I knew it was related to what EZ had said on the radio. And I pick up the phone, and this guy's, hello? And this guy's like, yeah, is that BQ? Yeah, hello, mate. Private number as well.
Yeah.
And it was a guy called Matt White who was dealing with the Kerry Hilson release, but which unfortunately for us had kind of already been agreed.
Yeah.
But he said, we're trying to get your remix on there instead of the other one. And he's like, we can't really give you much money for it. He said, we can give you, what did he say? It was either $1,000 or something like that. He said, we can get like $1,000 for you. And I said to him, mate, if you manage to get the tune on there, keep the $1,000.
Yeah.
Don't want it.
Yeah.
I said, because that is going to help us so much.
Yep.
Like having an extra £1,000, it's not going to help us really. Like, you know, but having our name on like a proper release for us it's like it would have been heaven. That didn't work out, but they still kept it, which is cool, whatever. But like I said, with the Tender Love thing, we had so many shit releases after that. I remember sending a song, one of our only original songs that we ever did. It was called Move On, and it was with Andy T. And we wrote it together and released it. And I remember sending it to Majestic, and he said to me, oh, wow, I actually quite like it. I'm surprised at your mix, talking about how the sound quality of it. And that was sort of like just a confirmation of what we've been releasing previous was unmastered crap. There were tunes that we had put out where we didn't even know what mixing down a tune meant. We didn't. We thought mixing down was a tune was pressing file, and then at the bottom it would say mix bounce. Down. Oh, bang, bounce. There you go. Yeah. And but that's learning as you go along.
Mate, even when we were running a label, we had people that send us music, and it was just like, some of it was great music, and it just like, did you check the levels on this before you sent it to us? Because it's like, you know, you're putting it in like, you know, you're putting it on like an analyzer or whatever, and just looking at the wave, and it's just like clipping everywhere, and just like, what the fuck is going on here?
Like that, yeah. And for us, it's the biggest regret I have. Is that the quality control wasn't quite there. And it's possibly because of everything that was being released at that time. It was coming 100 miles an hour. Yeah. It was 100. I remember going to a record shop, and this might not have even been it might have been to collect money. It was the one in Watford. I can't remember what it was called actually. It was a record shop up in Watford. And because this is how me and Unique used to work as well. Very rarely would we come together and make a tune from start to finish together. It would be, I would make a song, take it to his, and we'd finish it, and vice versa. And I had done this remix of, is it Fergie from Black Eyed Peas? She'd done a song called Glamorous. I remember I was gassed. I had this remix done, and I thought, I'll kill two birds with one stone. I'll take this to the record shops today, because I was going to collect money. Now I don't know whether that was to collect money from events or from record sales. And I remember going in there, and I'd already done it to about 4 or 5 record shops, saying, "Oh yeah, look, this is my new one. Look, play it on the CD, man. Like, what do you reckon?" And because we're still thinking about pressing up a tune or whatever. And I remember I walked in there as a remix of Glamorous was being played, and it just shitted all over mine. And it was like one of them ones where like, you're like, oh my God, And I remember, like, it's like I just caved in, like I just, went all small. And, oh, whose remix is that? You know what I mean? It was Danny Dubs, and I was like,
I was gonna say,
throw that
I think it
CD
came
out.
out on like the Street Beats EPs or whatever, and yeah, that Danny was another one. Like I haven't spoken to Danny for ages, but I've done a few events with him, and yeah, some of his music was fucking great. Again, just like that sort
Simple,
of
like, I know what
just
you mean.
classy,
It
like
worked.
yeah. And there's a lot of stuff that I listen to, but again, you get that easy reaction of like, why is this not the official remix? Do you know what I mean? Like he did a mix of that Seek Bromance, that I will give to you the love that, and I thought like the way he actually structured the vocal on that track compared to the original was actually wrong. He's done it in the wrong way. But it sounds better. It's a better track. And I always used to sit there and go, I listened to the original, the house track,
you
the
can't
house
listen
version.
to it.
Yeah. I was always like, this is
I know.
absolutely shit compared to Danny's version. And his was just like class. Like I would play that in a commercial garage set and people would vibe to it, you know. Yeah, Danny's music's a lot like that. And but again, you know, I got that feeling from a lot of your stuff, and I always
because I think
playing
if you do those R&B remixes, you got to remember that half the work's done for you already.
Yeah.
When you do those kind of simple kind of, you know what, you don't really need to touch this too much because the tune's great, and you know, you would just play it. And I'll be honest, we got to a stage where we were just making music just to play on the radio on our shows, and dying for EZ to play it. And there were tunes that we sent EZ, and you sort of start to get to know which ones he'll play, which ones he won't. But you would send it anyway because he'll be on the mailing list. And I remember this was like later on, we done was it a remix? Yeah, it was. Ultra done this tune with who was it? I can't remember who it was, but Ultra had done this tune, and he wanted a garage remix, and we done a garage remix, and it was great. And we got it. We actually did get it mixed and mastered properly. But I don't know. I suppose every producer has this moment where you're in the studio and it sounds great, right? And you get in the car on the way home, you're playing it, you're like, yeah, it sounds great. And then for some reason, we sent it off. It sounds like a tinny piece of shit. And I was really disappointed. And I remember sending it. I remember EZ not playing it. And I said to Unique, he's definitely rinsing this one. Like, this tune's bad. And he didn't play it. And when I listen back to that song now, it's because it's not mixed properly. It was mixed by someone else. Like, I sat there with them and they did it. You know? And this is I'm not going to say who it was because, you know, they are really good at their craft, but everyone can have a bad day.
Also, sometimes people just
didn't come out well.
If they're not 100% in with the actual original track, or they don't know the genre or something like that, you've always got them people that will know the technical side of things, but they don't know how a piece of music in that particular genre is supposed to sound. So like I could take like the stems for a soulful house track to someone who makes garage, and they wouldn't understand, you know, the way a particular instrument is supposed to sound on the record and what's supposed to lead it and stuff like that. So yeah, shit happens. But
I mean, ultimately we did get loads of remix work and did loads of remix swaps for people, and it was great. We had a great time. I suppose for us, like, Unique's the talented one out of us two, and for him, I suppose towards the end of it all, if you started to realise that the tunes started to sound quite similar, it's because he started to make them all.
Yeah.
I would say a lot of them actually, the last 3-4 releases that we had, I had little to sometimes no input. There were times where you know, I would send him a tune that I'd made and he'd go, yeah, man, just send it out. You know, just trying to think, we've done a remix of Rihanna's Disturbia, which EZ was hammering that one as well. And that was one where I'd, sent to him or showed him, and he went, "Yeah, sweet. We ain't got to change. We ain't got to touch that. That's nice." And I have said this to you, Nick, but probably not as much as I should really. But I felt quite bad that I didn't fully bring him along for the journey in regards to the DJing, and it wasn't calculated. Like I said, like he's like one of my best mates.
Yeah.
Like, and when we stopped making music together, there was no malice or whatever. It was just when he floated the idea to me about stopping it, I was well up for it, because I said to him, "I think you should do this by yourself." Because there were times where like he would send a tune and I would say, "No, don't like it," and vice versa, obviously. But he's really talented, and he maybe just, I don't know, like maybe I slightly restricted him a little bit towards the end, or maybe when you get that feeling that it's not quite 50-50 anymore. And I couldn't really offer anything else because of my life at that point was completely different. I had other things going on that were stopped my, I suppose, took up a lot of my time.
Yeah.
And he is like, obviously, like I'm extremely biased when it comes to him, but he's super talented.
He is. He really is.
He's just got this like this ear for stuff, and hopefully there's something in the pipeline for him at the minute, actually, that I really hope comes to fruition, because he deserves it so much. And he's one of those people that I look at and think, if someone deserves to make money from music, I'm not talking about being a millionaire. I'm just talking about
making a living,
earning 30 grand a year, making music.
Yeah.
And this is the problem with the people that don't want to pay for music. This is what happens. You get these people that are super talented. Look, without naming names, there are producers that are household names that have other jobs.
Yep.
And it shouldn't be like that. Like I literally, I don't know. So if Mike Delinquent releases a tune, I could email Mike Delinquent and say, "What's happening, Mike? Mike, send me a copy of that tune, please, mate. I really like that." But it's £1 on iTunes.
Yeah.
Like, just buy the tune.
It's funny because the guy I'm going to get on the podcast, for anyone listening to this is probably going to be episode 2. And episode 1, the guest should have been, in theory, a guy called Sai Says, who I'll be sitting down and recording with tomorrow as we speak. But he's basically just started. Sai Says is a house legend. Like, he's been part of Defected, Soul Heaven, everything else.
Yeah.
And he's just launched his own label. And his first release came out yesterday, and rather than text him and say, "Sire, send me that tune," which I could have done 6 weeks ago when I first heard it, I just bought the tune this morning. Do you know what I mean? And I bought it on Traxsource because I know he gets more money if I pay more money. Yeah. And also because it's already in the chart on Traxsource, me buying another copy of it gets it a little bit higher, and a little bit higher. And it's like, I'm not saying that I don't get tracks from promos, and sometimes we share tracks between DJs or whatever. Like, there's loads of free music floating about.
That's fine.
But when it comes down to your people, man, you've got to look out for your people. Do you know what I mean? I'd rather buy a size track and get someone to send me their own version of a Dennis Ferrer track, for example. Do you know what I mean? Like, because he's minted.
Smasher made a great point, actually, quickly, just the other day. He tweeted out that it was obviously quite a big producer from back in the day, had tweeted him or messaged him and said, "Can you send me a copy of your vinyl?" And he was selling these vinyls for £100 because they're limited edition. They The tracks on there aren't never going to be released digitally. So,
Yep.
If you're a big vinyl head and a big garage head, I think that's vinyl don't come around all the time. So I would buy it.
Yeah.
And he said like, oh, I just had this guy, this producer, asked me for a copy of my record. He was like, mate, I used to buy your records all the time.
Yeah.
Like, just buy it.
Yep.
Like, come on, man. Like, you know what I mean? Spending
like,
£7 a pop, like, on all these records.
Someone else
back in the day.
One of my dad's best friends, or one of his old best friends, is Brass Tooth, who's someone else.
Right.
Someone else I'm hoping to try and get on the pod. But obviously, he's been around since I was a kid, and he gave me a signed copy of Celebrate Life when I was like 11 years old or whatever. Do you know what I mean? But
you still got it?
I was somewhere, yeah. I was chatting to him. And it's funny because it's actually on the deck sitting right next to me right now. It's on the 1210 there. But there's a record that he done, which was a remix of Gerardo, Bring It Back, and it was on Hot Wax. And it's, for me, it's one of the best two-step garage tracks ever made. And I didn't have a digital copy of it, and I couldn't find the vinyl of it. And I hit him up and I was like, Brass, have you got this fucking tune? I was like, I need this tune. And he was like, yeah, he's like, I've got it on a DAT somewhere. He's like, that's how old like it is. I've got it like somewhere. And in the in-between time, I just fucking bought the vinyl. I went on Discogs and just bought a copy of it. He ain't going to get money for that, but I'm just like, at the end of the day, I bought the record because I wanted the record anyway. And then like the day after it turned up in the post, he hit me up with a WAV. He was like, yeah. I was like, sweet, I haven't even got to go through the effort of ripping it. So he's done me a favor anyway. But yeah, little things like that. Like, I just think, why not?
Especially where music's so cheap. But yeah, go on,
exactly. Before we wrap this up, because it's been like 3 odd hours now, so I don't know where the time's gone.
Do you know what? I never. Do you know what? When we first started this, I was thinking if I was doing a podcast, and this is like where the whole like OCD and like this cool radio mentality comes in. I was thinking if I was doing a podcast, I'd limit it to an hour. That's all I would do. But also as well, when you get to sort of Joe Rogan status with this podcast, I'm not going to be able to come back on because I'll have nothing to speak about. I'll have to do something.
We'll still do it because there's always going to be stuff to speak about. I think the good thing about doing this is, we speak about our interest in stuff and, the nerdy side of radio and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. And then what I'm hoping happens with this podcast is, if it starts to take off and people find it popular, when we can all go back to meeting up, I'd like to be able to sit down with people. So I will invest in, a decent mixer, desk mixer, and other mic stands and stuff like that. And hopefully be able to sit down together in person with people and shoot the shit in person and have a crack in that sense. So we'll definitely do it again. But before we do finish, there was a couple of quick ones I wanted to ask you. And this is difficult. Do you have a favorite garage track?
It's the most ridiculous question.
Do you know, I know it is, and I would hate it if someone asked me. So, but
okay, you know what? There is a way of working this out, actually, and I suppose there's a couple of ways. Play.
Yeah, there's a couple of ways of looking at it. It's either a song that you would listen to yourself, like without being anywhere, just a garage track you pull out to be like, I want to hear that fucking tune, or a song that if you were DJing in a packed rave and you had that one killer track that you were going to drop. So there's like, that's not necessarily a favorite track, but that's a weapon of mass destruction. Like, do you have a favorite weapon of mass destruction?
God.
It is a massively difficult question.
It is a difficult one, and for me, with music and with how I answer this question would be my mood at the time. Because you're always thinking of now. Like I'm sitting there thinking, what would I like to listen to now? And I would like to listen to maybe. I'll tell you what a tune I like, and it's because it's quite musical. Is K Warren Coming Home. Now I know it's quite like, oh god, like K Warren Coming Home. But
do you know what? I did that garage stream a couple of months ago, and I played it, and I was in my bedroom vibing, and I was like, nah, this. Do you know what? This is actually a fucking record and a half. Like it really is great.
And do you know what I love about K Warren's tunes is that they could be played live by a band. There's nothing quite digital about them. They're
No.
very analogy, and I really like that. And that is a proper garage song. Like, it's a song. It has structure. It has real structure. So I suppose I could throw you out a few. So that one there for me is definitely one that I could listen to over and over again. Also, another one where you're going to go, oh, enough is enough. Why try?
No, that would be in my bag.
Yeah, it's actually one of the first vinyls I bought. It was a song that I just loved. But when I think of raves and I think of playing a tune where when you played it and like the crowd went nuts. Obviously, there's like Little Man and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But I tell you what, I kind of like the impact of Wiley, what you call it. Now, it was just that you could literally stop the music dead and then just go, and it would just erupt. And I know it's called what you call it, so like you know what he's referring to. So it's probably not garage, but it's garagey, and that for me, that tune there in a rave, and that's quite weird, see, because the tunes that I make are very like girly and they're a bit cheesy, but like you like Kano, and I'm exactly the same. Like if you went on my Spotify playlist, for instance, it's just a mixed bag of absolutely everything. But yeah, when I think about that sort of bullet, I loved that kind of, you didn't even need to mix it. It was just bang, dum, 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 and the crowd used to just.
I think a track like that for me is probably Wookiee Storm.
Oh,
that's another track you don't have to mix. You just bum 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 bum. It's like it's game over.
You know what though? Was you like this when
over.
You first started DJing? I used to hate it. When you were playing at a rave, and this was always in like the early days because I didn't really have the confidence. And I could mix. I was okay mixing. Like if anything, my tune selection was the worst. But when DJs used to leave you with a Wookiee song to mix into, I used to be like, oh, you son of a bitch.
It's funny. I was listening to, he done a radio show with, I think it was on Pulse. He did a show with Mystic Matt years ago. And Matt interviewed him, and I texted Matt before the show and I was like, bruv, do me a favor and ask him why he made the drops on his tunes so fucking confusing. And the thing is, when you listen to them properly, they're not. But if you've had a couple of beers and you're just waiting for that and it goes, whoa, like you don't, it's something in your brain just goes, all right, it's been 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But and you go, oh shit, I've missed it. I asked him if there was any particular reason. He was like, nope, didn't do it deliberately, just did it. That's how I like the music to sound. Right. So straight from the horse's mouth, that's what it was. But see, this is what I'm saying. Like we could sit for another 3 hours and do another podcast talking about that kind of stuff. So we will definitely do it again. But there was one final question that I had. And it was, away from True FM.
I'm scared now. Go on.
What would have been your favorite pirate station to listen to at any point in your lifetime, basically? Outside of
It's an easy answer. It's an easy answer. And I don't know whether it's because it was on my estate, but that's Freak FM.
Freak FM, yeah.
101.8, yeah.
Makes sense.
That was what got me into garage and what got me, I suppose, inspired, because you would see these people, you would see EZ, and even though I didn't really know who EZ was, because I was like part of the younger lot, they would say, oh, that's EZ, or that's so-and-so.
Yeah.
And the guy that, you would see the guy that owned Freak FM, Rama, you'd see him in the flats. He's your next door neighbour. So I think possibly that's the reason why, because it felt so genuine at that point.
Yeah. Well, mate, I really appreciate you coming on.
No, man, thank you, mate. I really appreciate it, actually. Like I said,
eye-opening and emotional, like just to be able to hear all of these stories about, a station and something I didn't really know too much about the ins and outs of. It's like I know a lot about the stations that I've been on, but that was one that I was never
Yeah.
on. So yeah, I really appreciate you being so open and honest about a lot of the things that went
No.
on as well. It's been a real eye
Yeah.
opener. And
I mean, like I said to you at the start, like if anyone that listens to this can just take a little bit and apply it to what they're doing now in music, and if it helps them in any
even
way,
if they just
or
feel
even if,
inspired,
even if they think, you know what, well, I never knew this geezer did that, because I'm quite a I'm quite a private person.
yeah,
Um, for instance, like, one of the reasons why I remember when I asked you, when you asked me to do this, I said about, is it going to be on video? And because one of the things, I'm quite private. I don't know. I've always been like that. But if someone can look at this now and go, you know what, I'm going to hit him up. I'm going to email this guy or message him or whatever, and ask him for some advice. I'm all ears, mate. You know what I mean?
yeah.
Like, I'm like, knowledge is better shared than anything else, and it might be knowledge that they already know, but if it's worth a try and it helps someone, then I'm all up for it. And I think that's why these podcasts are great anyway, mate, to be honest.
Yeah, I'm hoping it does something. I'm hoping it opens some eyes and ears to things that people weren't sure about. As I say, I've got other people from other walks of life and different professions coming on, so it should be a lot of fun. But mate, really appreciate it. The first recording I've done. Hopefully this comes out all right. Otherwise, it's 3 hours of just waffle.
Fingers crossed. Fingers crossed.
I know you are a private person, but did you want to plug a social account or anything like that before we bounce?
I suppose I just wanted to plug. I mean, like, you can get me on Twitter. So that's the thing. My Twitter handle is still BQ and Unique. But, but like I said, I think if I'd like to plug something, definitely be Midi Logic. I'd love to.
Yeah.
If anyone hasn't heard his stuff or isn't familiar with his stuff, to just go and check it out.
He is really good. I'll second that.
Mate. He's got some great things coming. Hopefully.
Big him up, right? BQ, thanks very much, mate.